Wrong.
All right. Welcome back. Tuesday. We're back at you doing the thing from the basement with the dudes. We got an extra dude in the house tonight. If anyone watched any of our fancy promotional materials, you know that Kris Johnson is in the house. He is going to go through some mastering with us and teach us some stuff that I should already know but don't. And you shouldn't know yet but will soon enough. So that's the point. Yeah, we're back after a fun week of stuff. Everyone in the room is fully vaccinated and past their freedom dates now. That's big. We feel good about hanging out without masks on around each other. Kind of fun. Feeling good about that.
That's what you guys look like.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's what the rest of you looks like. Put the mask back on. What are you doing, a little lighting, Joe?
Yeah, messing with some stuff, you know.
Good time to do that.
Yeah, good time to do that. It's not like we're live or anything. Hey, Brandy, how's it going?
Light in here.
Wow, it's extra bright now.
Yeah, it is extra bright.
What else? I'm trying to think of what's been going on. Were we on last week? I'm like confused now.
We were
not.
Last week was
we were here last week,
Oh,
but
right.
we weren't on.
But we went on the laptop.
Yep.
That's right. So yeah, we kind of skipped last week because we had some editing to do. We made the Eastwood video. I just heard back from the Eastwood dude today. He missed the email. He got it now, so you should be sharing that video soon. So you should be seeing that on the Eastwood website and on their social media, which is cool. And yeah, and then we just did a kind of seat of the pants laptop episode last week where we just kind of let you guys in behind the scenes as we edited that and recorded some poor guitar playing on my part to tuck behind the Eastwood video. And yeah, did a little editing, made this little commercial for tonight's show with Kris. And trying to think. I think that's all we did last week. But yeah, we're back this week with a proper episode. We're going to do a little, instead of mixing, we're going to do a little mastering. So this is what happens after your mix is done. And you kind of want to get that last finalizing on it and get the level up to proper and all the stuff that comes with mastering, which we will talk about as we go through it tonight. But we're going to go back into, if you were with us for a couple episodes, I recorded a demo a while back called When the Medicine Runs Out. KJ has mastered that mix of mine, and he's just going to go through his process, show you what he used and why he used it, and kind of what mastering is. It's kind of a mysterious thing to a lot of people, so you should be able to get a little perspective as to what a mastering guy does. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a little different. It'd be nice to have someone else in the hot seat. I can just hang out in the chat, hang out with you guys, and we'll change it up a little bit. We're keeping things moving. We got a special guest next week lined up too. I don't know if we should announce it yet or should we wait?
I think maybe we wait.
Okay, we'll wait. So that's a little teaser for you right there.
Props to you for thinking about that for
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah. We got a special guest. It's going to be cool. What can I tell you? I can tell you he's a multi-platinum recording artist, and he's not one that you would immediately guess. So you can all go, oh, it's Dave Perner, but it's not Dave Perner. I'll tell you at least that much. But it's going to be cool. It's a guy that I've got to work with a little bit recently. He's tied into some projects that we've done here and some stuff that you guys are already hip to. But yeah, so he's going to come in via Zoom. We're working it all out right now, but I would say look for a little commercial for that within the next couple days here. We'll let you know what's up for next Tuesday, but it'll be a good one, so we'll keep you guessing. Oh, Joe, you don't like being teased? You're at the wrong show for that, dude. A lot of times I let the cat out of the bag way early, but I tightened it up today. I asked Brad first, and he shut me down. So you'll have to wait a couple days to find out who that special guest is, but it'll be a good one. It'll be well worth it. It's going to be a good Zoom hang, I think, for sure. So
Diane's in the YouTube chat tonight. She went over to YouTube.
Oh.
So we'll take this instant to remind everybody to go do the YouTube thing, hit the button,
Yeah, we need help over in YouTube land. So if you would please go over to the easiest way to get there is noisebelow.live. We'll take you directly to our YouTube. If you could subscribe up for us. I hate to beg for the subscriptions and all that stuff, but we need a certain amount to get our custom URL and to kind of get the ball rolling over there. So please do. It's weird not having Diane in this chat. I'll get YouTube open as well.
That's kind of why I said it, just to keep everybody in the loop.
Yeah, I'll get the YouTube window open as well on the laptop shortly here, so I can keep an eye on both chats. I currently just have the Facebook one up, but I will do that because it's time. It's time to start working over there anyhow. So. short of that, like I said, we're gonna get Kris in here sooner than later. What do you think, Brad? Are you feeling warmed up? Do you want to go right into your thing?
I think we can do it.
I don't have a ton to talk about right now, but I do need to get this bass.
Let's get this right.
If we're gonna do a little.
We're working on this. We're gonna smooth that.
Right. We're keeping this live. We talked about just cutting this little part, but we think it's way more funny to just do it live. So.
And I got to do a lot of running around.
Yeah, right. Brad's got cameras or Joe's got cameras to adjust. I got bass, which I don't hear yet, but I will. I got that latency. Are we just going for it?
We're on. You just got to hit it. Brad,
I think that was it.
Watch it on the
I left a little hanging there just to keep them really guessing. But yeah, hit us with a little. What's that news, Brad?
The intro will evolve, as we were talking about before we started the show.
Oh, do you have a problem with my live intro? With
No, man.
that little
I think
dramatic pause in there, dude.
I think it's like the Seinfeld episodes. It mix it up every single time.
That's true. It is kind of like the Seinfeld episode.
I also love the live playing so that like we can like bass heckle Brad.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, right.
Just start playing it to move me along.
What do you got this week, Brad?
That's it. The segment's over.
A few new releases. Dinosaur Jr. Sweep It Into Space. Great new record from them. Really dig that one. I don't know if you guys have checked it out yet, but I know Nick from Exactly No really liked it too. We were talking about that a couple weeks ago when we were down here. Exactly, Nick.
Got it.
Glasswing, like water on a glass table, which is Aaron Marsh from Copeland's new band or solo project. Really cool, super ambient kind of stuff. Manchester Orchestra, The Million Masks of God. Number 3 top selling Joe, what did you do?
That backfired, didn't it, Joe?
I was excited. Let's keep going.
Number 3 top selling record on Billboard last week.
Wow.
Sick.
So that's what, 400 copies?
375, yep.
Not hating on the band, just hating on record sales in general.
It's cool to see a rock band at the top, though, for sure. And then also announced was new single from Ryan Smith.
Oh, that's right.
Called I'm Slipping, coming out May 28th on all streaming platforms.
Yeah, we got to support our buddy Ryan. I have not heard the song yet. I heard his first single. It was awesome. I'm sure the second one will be awesome because Ryan is awesome. I'll say it again.
It's true.
Yep.
A couple tour things to touch on. Armor for Sleep, What to Do When You're Dead, 15-year anniversary tour. Rescheduled dates are on sale now. I'm super excited about that one. And Hometown Homies Motion City soundtrack, Commit This to Memory, 17-year, which I believe was supposed to be the 15-year.
Right, I noticed they had a couple crossed off in the promo, right.
Now the 17-year anniversary tour, all dates are on sale now for that, I believe, as well, starting January 1st for that tour. Couple album anniversaries, Gleamer, Down Through, which is a pretty awesome record. If you haven't checked that out, that turned 1 the other day. Balance and Composure, Separation, turned 10.
Wow.
Yeah. Sick. Like they still seem like just young kids, right?
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Because what record was that when we toured with them with Jealous Sound? Was it that one? The one before that one.
No, it was the one right after that.
I can't remember the title.
I can't remember the title. It had Tiny Raindrop on it.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
band.
Blue, pink, and yellow cover.
Cool band. Good dudes.
That's a good record.
Like those guys.
Killswitch Engage, The End of Heartache. 17 years. That's the one with Howard Jones that,
That's like my kind of metal.
Yeah.
Killswitch.
Super melodic. Great vocals.
And Adam
Dutkowitz,
man. Great producer, but man, this dude just slays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the original drummer for that band. I don't know if you knew that.
Shit?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yep.
Brad with the knowledge.
Brad coming. That's why he's got What's That News, right?
Yep. And one more album anniversary, Sunny Day Real Estate Diary, 27.
Wow. Yeah, that was a big record for all of us, for sure, right. That's crazy.
Didn't Weezer come out today, too?
Yeah.
There's a new Weezer record.
No, I think the Blue album.
And then the Blue album is that the same? Is it 20? It might be the same.
27.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah.
Because I was a freshman in college when this came out.
Don't date yourself on the show. We want people to think we're young.
Chris, you're way
He's a freshman in high school.
When that came out.
Right.
I think I am the oldest one in the room right now.
God, no.
We'll talk about that off air.
Yeah,
Spoken by the young guy. Gotta be, bro.
Well, he just said he was like 40 when Weezer record came out.
But yeah, that's a cool record.
27 years.
Yeah.
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 That's a landmark.
That was a big record for you.
Game-changing
Yeah, right.
record
I listened to that record for an entire summer.
Yeah.
All summer.
Still do.
Still do.
And that's what I've got for news this week.
Oh, Diane says Hard Promises just had its 40th birthday. Joe asked us to add a link to the YouTube in the chat so people can pop over and subscribe. We will do that. So are we done with What's That News?
I think I need an outro.
Sick camera work over here, by the way.
Getting my Rick James on tonight with this guy. You know what I'm saying? Mary Jane. We were just listening to that earlier. Why?
Bring the funk.
Because we're nerds. And because Joe brings the funk, apparently. All right, so we can delete this bass track. We don't have to listen to me play the What's That News intro anymore. What else do we got? Anything else? Should we jump into this thing? Should we
feel
bring KJ in here?
Have you talked about like how y'all we should like introduce Cage? And, like,
Yeah, well,
we
let's
should
let
talk
Cage
about
get up
it.
here. I'll slide in the chair.
socket
You know,
here.
get up in the sweet
The
spot.
cockpit.
You got it.
All right. So yeah, Joe brought up a good point. Chris is probably one of the very first people I met when I moved to Minneapolis, like within the first day or two for sure, because Chris was already at Twin Town,
Yep.
which was then and still is the coolest guitar shop in Minneapolis. And I immediately started hanging out there because that's what you did back then. Like people would kind of like, even when you didn't work there, you'd show up at like open and hang out for like 5 hours. Like there was a lot of hanging in those days.
There was a lot of hanging, a lot of smoking.
Yeah, right. At that point, you could still smoke in
inside.
Twin Town. There was giant ashtrays on the table. Like you would like roll in and be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" Light them up. Like
Yep.
so weird to think about.
Sometimes.
It sounds like it's like we're talking about the 70s, but that was not that long ago.
Are we
but
talking 90s?
90. Well, I started
like
working here in 2000.
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say I was around here about 2001. I think is when I started like lived here or somewhere in there. But yeah, so we've been friends forever. Chris is also an engineer, producer. He is the studio manager over at Flowers. I've mentioned that before. Tube amp repair guy / kind of master of all repairs at Twin Town. Builds his own amplifiers, KJ audio amplifiers, which you've seen on stage with Motion City Soundtrack and many others, but maybe most notably Solus. Yeah, I forget Ryan plays a KJ audio amp. I always forget that. Why? I do not know. Yeah, and he's a mastering guy. I am not, like I've mentioned before. So, it will be interesting to go through this stuff with him. He's mastered a demo of mine. He's kind of showed me a little bit of what he's done, but I haven't got the full breakdown because we decided we would save it for the stream. So he's got a couple mixes loaded up, and yeah, I don't know, man. What's the how do you want to launch into it, or how do you want to break down like what? I send you a mix. I send it to you a couple different ways, so you have some options, and then like, what's the first thing you do or listen for? Like, what is the workflow of mastering a track?
Well, usually what I do is the first thing I do is look at it. So before I begin, maybe a couple of bits of information.
Yeah.
One, I do mastering. I don't consider myself a mastering engineer. I think we talked about like the CLA thing where he's like, the badge. He talks about the badge. I'm
Sure.
like, I can master stuff. I do mastering, but like, I don't try to profess to be a full. That's some pro move right there.
Yeah.
Good job.
That's why Joe gets the medium bucks.
It's kind of that thing where what we're gonna go over tonight is like, how do you master your own mix? What can you do to not send it to a mastering guy? Maybe you don't want to spend that money. Maybe
Right.
you don't want to go that route quite
Right.
yet. I do mastering. If I was doing it more on a professional level, I would do it at Flowers. I would do it with the hardware.
Sure.
I do a combination of hardware and analog gear and the box.
Right,
What
you gotta-
we're gonna focus on tonight is really what is in the box mastering? How can you master your own tracks?
And this is no
simply?
special software. This is just Pro Tools plugins. I mean, there are certainly many mastering specific programs, but this is not how we're doing it tonight. This is how a musician kind of could master his track when he's done his or her track.
This is to keep it real simple.
Right.
So,
which we like around here.
We like it, and it's effective. And so, so when I get a track from somebody, the first thing I do is I actually just look at the waveform. I'm going to dial this down a little bit so we can see it a little better first off. So like I had you send me 2 mixes, and we'll get back into this. This was the all one, and this is the one where you
I left a limiter on there.
You had your own limiter and your own master fader, and that's common practice now to do your own master fader management. It helps you make sure that your track ends up the way you want it. It helps your client feel like it's more exciting, because as we'll see, we'll kind of scan through the differences. Like when we get to this one here, down here, that is just your raw track that you sent me with no mastering.
Nothing on the master bus, right? And typically I will leave a compressor and an EQ on a master bus, but I would usually almost never print the limiter to send to mastering. I just did that because Kris was like, send it to me 3 ways. Everything but the limiter, and nothing at all. Just so he could see. And you ended up mastering the one with nothing at all. That was your preferred one. It gave you the most room to work, obviously.
It gives me the most latitude.
Right.
And that's a good point. Like, when you send stuff off to mastering, when you're doing your own mixes, you kind of make a couple different choices. You can do when I'm sending stuff out, if I know it's going to go to somebody good or somebody I can trust, or I feel good about what is going to happen later on, I'm going to leave latitude. I'm going to leave some room.
You're not going to put anything on the master bus, probably, or very little, if anything.
Very little, if anything at all. I have gotten to the point now where I really don't put anything on my master fader anymore, because it helped me do 2 things. Number one, it gets better masters, but I also felt like it improved my mixing because I was no longer talked about, like Eric. We watched these. He hit me to Eric Valentine, and he talks about how he puts stuff on and he mixes into it, and that's going to affect your mix from the jump.
Yeah, a lot of guys just slap a limiter on at the end.
They know what they're going to do, so they start there. So for me, it helped me get my mixes better. It helped me get better masters. Now, the inverse of that is that, let's say you finished a project and you don't know if the client's going to get it mastered. You don't know if the guy that they've chosen or person that they've chosen is going to do a very good job. You might want to button it down a little harder.
I've talked to my buddy Evan Bakke, who's a great mixer, and he's like, I don't leave a whole lot of room anymore because I don't really, I want him to be able to touch it and finish it, but I don't want him to be able to reinvent the wheel. So I cook it in pretty good. And I get that concept, especially if you don't know where it's headed. Because, I mean, we have all had, I think, probably mastering experiences where you get it back and you're like, wow, this is way cool, this is awesome. And then there's the flip side where you're like, oh man, it was better before. What happened to this? It can happen. It does happen, When I was getting into engineering and recording and doing records and stuff like that, like the biggest line of mastering is at best it won't come back worse. You hope it doesn't come back worse. And there was a guy in town who like that was his reputation. Like, you would give it to him, he would master it, which is more than just the sonic aspects of it. We'll get into that a little bit, but it won't come back to you disappointing. It'll pretty much just be what you gave him, just rounded out in the right way. So getting back to, like, what do I do? The first thing I do is I do look at it. So, like, this top one here is your stuff printed, and as you can see, it looks kind of like a block. It's a lot louder.
Here's your intro, and then here's clearly the band kicks in. Here's the classic JT middle breakdown section.
A little room to breathe.
And then here we come out for the big chorus at the end,
We're just got hot dogs in the choruses.
But we don't see anything. Now we go down here, and we see that same intro. It's bigger, but we still see a lot of...
There's actually some dynamic range.
And no peaks are being clipped off or anything like that. No boxes, whereas on this one you can see, pull this one down a little bit, it's a little more smashed on the ends. Even still, though, this is pretty subtle.
I didn't completely hot dog it. Like, you can see them where they're just square waves.
It's just a
there's nothing left.
Black square the entire way. So I chose this because it gave me the most amount of room and let me do the most with it. I did do a version where I worked on this one as well, and so we can see like what the differences
just
of that
see what
are.
you could do to a pre-limited, pre-smashed one, essentially.
Exactly. Right. So let's get into this first. I guess the first thing we should do is maybe just play the original track, the unmastered version, maybe like a verse.
Sure.
And the intro through like the first chorus.
So I will say this for everyone in the stream quick, like this is the unmastered track, so this is not going to be super loud in your headphones, and as Kris starts applying the things that he applies, the volume will come up. So if this seems low, don't
don't crank your phones.
Yeah, don't crank everything way up, because as we do start instantiating some plugins, the level's going to come up. But so this is me printing with plenty of headroom, no peaks, no red. I try to keep it at a fairly reasonable place so the mastering guy has room to work. That's another thing we should talk about at some point, is like what a good target for pre-mastering levels is. But yeah, let's give him, this is a little taste of just the mix as it was, no processing on the master bus whatsoever.
Now the real me doesn't feel me when the medicine runs out.
right, so when I started this, I put up this meter. This is called the Ulean Loudness Meter 2.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, it's free if you want a meter.
There is a better version of it you can buy, but I put this up for a couple reasons. One, to show how hot this track is as we go down. You can see the cool thing about this is it lets you scan through.
It records it in as it plays it through, right?
The number you really want to pay attention to most are these two.
Yep.
Negative 15.8 LUFS integrated means it's an average of the entire track.
Right.
Whereas you have that was where the track ended 24, but kind of in the middle would be if we had the pro version we could skip and it would actually it is showing us.
So is that like RMS to like peak sort of deal?
Well, it's a different way of LUFS has kind of become the new way.
Right.
It's just a different type of scale.
Right.
But you know what you said, like what volume should we look for?
Yeah, like I never really. I mean, I know to leave headroom for a mastering guy, but I don't necessarily have a number I shoot for. You know.
Well, back in our analog days, it mattered more.
Sure.
And now it matters a lot less because, like, oh, is it too loud? Well, I'll just do this.
Yeah, right.
thing.
We have a lot of options these days.
You can do that.
Right.
There's this guy. God, what's his name? He's a Waze guy. He's one of the presets. Wad Niveau.
Oh yeah. I don't know how you say his name. Yod or something.
Yeah,
Yod.
he's great, and he has like a mastering tutorial. And the first thing he says is, "Hey, if it's loud, don't pitch a fit. Just turn it down.
Turn it down. Right.
It's digital. Don't worry about it."
Right. It's not like the old days where if you pull down the fader below 0, it's not as sweet sounding as it was at Unity. Like it doesn't really matter now.
You're not worried about that noise, that signal to noise ratio that we used to have to be concerned with. Like, and so it really doesn't super matter as long as it's not clipping.
Right.
As long as it doesn't have peaks shaved off, as long as it's not like totally
digital clipping
mashed.
does not sound good, and there's no way to really fight out of that. If it's cooked in, it's cooked in. You're not going to
If you got it on your track, you're done.
Right.
So just looking at your track, negative 15.8, perfect. That's about what I would want.
Talking about.
But it's exactly plenty of headroom that allows me lots of leeway. So let's take a look at now. This is a bit of you with your processing on it now.
It's a slightly earlier mix, but yeah, this was everything.
We won't listen to the whole thing.
And I left the limiter on. I put a limiter on it really just for myself because I check my mixes upstairs in headphones, and without a limiter, I listen off my iPad and I cannot turn it up loud enough without I need to hear some level. So and I like to hear a limiter as I'm mixing just to kind of get an idea of what might happen in mastering.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So.
It is a good thing to kind of have an idea of what's going on because there is one little thing that we're going to look at later that we might have been able to fix if we cared or had the time to, but could have tripped us up, but it didn't.
In this version.
In your actual final
version. In the final.
In your final. Okay, so we'll go to that when we get to the end. But let's just play a little bit of this one here. So I'm just going to stop right here. So we've got this integrated number. So one thing about this meter is you really can only get an accurate number by doing the whole track.
Right.
So right now we're looking at the short term. So you're at negative 10.2.
Right.
So you're almost at CD level.
Right. I'm a dB away.
And you've only got really 1 dB of headroom technically to get to negative 9 LUFS, which is our target for CDs. And we'll talk about all that stuff as we get there.
Right.
But
which makes sense though, because like I said, I'm slapping that limiter on for reference because I want to be able to listen off the phone or the iPad essentially all the way up. So I kind of need that CD level, or it just seems like it's short of volume.
And there is that thing, if you give a mix to a client that's too quiet, it's
a bummer.
It feels they're not excited.
Right.
and you don't want to tamper their excitement.
Right.
And
it
so,
doesn't hit their headphones as hard, or their car stereo as hard, and they have to turn it up louder, and it just doesn't. It's like
it feels weird.
It feels wimpy. It's like having a Marshall amp with a pre and a post, and like you don't have the preamp quite up with like enough gain or something.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
just
I mean?
not hot enough feeling. And then
Right.
like the next song on their playlist comes on, and it's
And
like
it cranks, and it
and
yeah.
they're like, whoa.
Well, my mix sounds wimpy, dude. Right?
Yeah,
That
and
did
so,
happen on an Align record.
Oh yeah.
On Blue Book Value, they got the mixes and they were just like, oh,
Yeah.
like
Totally.
it's just not really like what we thought it was going to be. And then it came back for mastering, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot
that
happens.
record-
Right.
that record's
All of a
great.
sudden, it's
Sounds
hitting your
awesome.
stereo hard.
So I can't remember which record it was, but there was Motion City had that same thing where they got their mixes done,
I remember this.
and I
Two
can't
different
remember
mixers.
two different mixers, and one was like they were like, man, these mixes are slam and they're awesome, and the other ones are like from like an older school dude. I can't
Right.
remember who it was.
I
but
remember. I remember now.
The
I
brand
remember
new
the young
guy
one.
out long.
Sapone.
Was it Eli?
Yeah.
Mike
yes,
Sapone?
Sapone. Mike
I
Sapone.
can't remember, but one guy was a more modern guy, so he had a lot of processing on his master fader. The other guy had none.
Right.
And so when they sent him off to mastering, they were concerned that the two things wouldn't balance out. And then when they got him back, they really liked the unmastered
Right.
stuff better because it like really
It
sprung
had. It
to
actually
life.
had room to grow. The other guys was so cooked that it really didn't have anywhere
Yeah.
to go. It was already done.
You can't really invent headroom that much once it's been squashed.
Right. You can't put dynamics back in.
Right.
I mean, mastering is kind of taking dynamics not out, but it's taking them down a little bit, right? Because I mean, you're trying to get everything more consistent so it can all be louder, and nothing's going to push past the window. The quiet parts come up to
Yeah,
accommodate.
you're reducing the dynamic overall.
Right.
You're also basically, if you're being technical about it, you are adding distortion by
Sure.
by doing limiting and
Right.
in processing like this. It is
Right.
it is a form of distortion
Right.
that you're adding, but we like what it sounds like. So we showed this second mix here, and we'll come back to it later. But I think what we'll do now is we'll get into the mix. I'm going to take this off for now.
Got it.
And start here. So this is how I start things. And I'm going to copy this over to B so I don't mess it up. And okay.
Yeah, I don't know if the demo is different. I don't own this
Looks
plug
good.
because Kris is about to replace this with the other one that I use anyway. But we got the demo, so we'd have
Yeah.
familiar tools tonight.
So this is what I use to start with. So I chose a really simple method for this thing. I might get a little more involved if I was doing it, but I felt like these three plugins were really effective for this thing.
Right.
I don't have like a set like always these three plugins for my mastering
Sure.
chains, but I always do these kind of steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll turn this off here.
Right, starts with an EQ.
And it starts with an EQ. And we're going to look through here. I've got 66 hertz, 88, 338, 841, 3000, 3K, and a little bit over 6K.
Yep.
And I kind of, first thing I'm going to do is, and the reason I like this F6 and now what I'm going to end up using, the Fab filter, because it seems to be this and even more.
Yep.
Is what I like about this one is I can solo this band here, and I'm going to get into the track a little bit.
Matic open.
All right, so is this working?
Yep.
You hear me?
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is show how I start this thing. So I got to remember 0.7, 66. So the first thing I'm going to do is solo this out. So I'm only listening to this kind of a cue, this bell here at this frequency. And so what I'll do is I'm going to pick kind of the meat of the song, chorus, and I'm going to kind of scroll around, and I'm looking for that. I can feel the kick drum now. And so your kick drum sort of was a little bit, usually we talk about 100 hertz
Right.
is your usual kick drum, but you had
Right.
a lot of nice subby info
Right, which
here.
is down there. Looks like it's more like 63-ish or somewhere in there.
66. So
Right.
I start here, and then I had this amount of gain, so I'm going to pull this back out. And
yeah.
so then what I'm going to do is get this back right. Also, friends, remember, I don't really know how to do all this stuff. This is my first time ever doing a live stream.
Yeah.
So
Kris, it's all right, man. We keep it.
I'm learning.
We keep it seat of the pants around here.
So what I'm doing with this is a couple things. I'm giving it a little bit of gain, and it's important to show, like, if you notice the gain knob here, and I'm going through 1.5 is a lot for me to put on an EQ.
Right,
here.
small moves.
Very small moves.
Right, you're adding a dB,
Subtle.
a dB and a half in some places. It looked like the one place where you were reducing was
very little,
a third of a dB. Right.
And so, like, I'm looking for very minimal moves here because I'm not trying to finish the track with this EQ.
Right.
I'm doing a couple things. I want to try to get a little EQ going. I want to carve a little things out, but I'm adding some things as I go along because I know that later on, as that limiting happens and everything starts to get squashed down, I'm kind of pre-emphasizing some things.
Sure.
Is really what I'm doing. So if we watch this track. And so that's at 66 hertz, and I'm using this threshold, this attack and release, because this is a dynamic EQ. And so as it hits that frequency, it's going to bubble it up. And I'm using this to help bring the kick a little bit forward. Yep. And here's an important thing I want to talk about for sure in mastering is, like, I'm not trying to change the mix. And the thing that I hate the most is, like, when you give a guy a master or something to master, and they try to alter the mix for some reason.
Yeah. Like we want to reinvent the wheel. You're not really supposed to reinvent the wheel. You're supposed to just, like, put a little air on the tire and make sure it rolls as smooth as possible.
We want to get everything kind of happening, and what I'm trying to do is just kind of add a little more width, loudness, clarity, and kind of breadth to the track. Yep. So I'm adding a little bit of kick here because I know that later on I might get it squashed in when that limiter comes in.
Right.
So I've had it where I've given guys mixes and it comes back so strange because they've done some kind of weird subsonic boost and they're trying to accentuate the bass guitar for some reason. And my thing is, like, in mastering and in mixing, like, you and the client have spent quite a great deal of time getting to where you went.
Theoretically. You're supposed to have. Right. It should be pretty close to what you want. Right.
And so, like, it's not my job to then go in and change things for you.
Right.
It's my job to try to just give that final bit of frosting on the cake. Right. And so I'm not trying to do major things here, even though it will sound kind of major in the end, but we'll talk about volume. Right. Which is an important thing. And
volume always tricks you because louder just sounds better.
Always sounds
every
better.
Time. Right.
So we're going to go back to here. So this is where I found, like, a real good energy. So a 1.0. I'm looking for that low end of that bass, right? Because we talked about that a little bit, and we wanted to kind of we wanted to get that thump in. It's important for a track like this to have a nice, good, solid sounding bass guitar.
So you need to reinforce the bottom somewhere along the way. Yep.
And so I'm doing this. This cue is just the width of the bell.
Yep.
And then you can see I'm not doing really any of that attack release thing with this particular band.
Right. You're just kind of giving it a little boost. So with a 1 dB boost right there.
Maybe I'll turn this down here, and then going through this is...
Right, that's the AM radio.
That's your AM.
That's all the mid-range content, which you kind of need to hear, because that's where all the hearing happens. If you're in the grocery store, that's where most of the resolution from the grocery store speakers is, kind of right there.
Yeah, you want a little bit of this is 330 hertz, and this is just to get a little bit of the bottom, kind of the very bottom of the vocal, some of the bottom of the guitar, and maybe the top of the bass, where most of its frequencies, everything's full spectrum pretty much, but these are sort of like the strongest frequencies. This here is 800 is like sort of almost always the enemy. And so I'm taking out not very much this time because it's actually not too bad, but usually I'm going to end up ducking a little bit of that out because
that's that thing, right?
This is that whistle sound, that kind of that kind of megaphone whistle
Right.
sound. And we don't like that very much as people. I don't.
Right, it's a little harsh.
That's one thing Ed really taught me is like untreated rooms tend to have a big buildup of 800 because they're not treated. And he's like, because he was helping me learn how to mix like my practice space demos and things like that. This is many years ago, and he was like, you kind of want to like look at 800. Right.
That's a good thing to bring up though, because so many people are just mixing in a bedroom or an extra room or whatever, and it's like, I mean, this is a total luxury to have all this trapping and all this shit on the walls to make it sound as balanced as I can down here. And even with that and a lot of time and planning and money, it's still not perfect. To get to perfect is damn near impossible, but it sounds good, and that's what you're shooting for. But if you're in a room that's untreated, it's easy to think you need to buy all this treatment, but you can also just kind of learn your room and work around it. A lot of people work in, a lot of big mixers just work anywhere now because you just you get familiar with your surroundings or whatever, and you can learn how to deal with it.
You can mix in any room, but this is from a tracking standpoint.
Right.
So like as you track, and I guess in the mix will be part of it too, but like most untreated rooms are going to have a pretty big buildup of 800-ish frequencies. And so like I was kind of poking around, and I settled on 841 was the frequency I wanted to take a very tiny bit out.
Right.
And a
0.3
fairly
dB, once again, almost nothing. Right.
Fairly lean Q here. And then here's 3K. That's there just to kind of help out the vocal a little bit because
I was going to say a little sibilance, a little top of the voice, a little bit of that nose.
Because the thing you have to get around, it took me a long time to get around, is people really just want to hear the singer. And they, like I don't really listen to the floor tom very much.
It's fun to work on all that stuff, but it's
fun
true.
To spend the time.
At the end of the day, it's like most people are just listening to the singer and feeling the beat,
feeling the kick drum,
right?
And the rest of it. And as a lead guitar player, I had to gain peace with this a very long time ago. Yeah. I'm window dressing, and I'm there to give the singer a break between the verse and the chorus, or after the chorus.
I remember doing an early session with John Fields and him looking over and going, "No one gives a fuck about your guitar riff, dude.
No one."
When it's all said and done, it's like such a small piece of the puzzle. If we have a great song and a great vocal, then your guitar riff is great, but it still doesn't really matter. And if the song sucks, I don't care how great your guitar riff is. It ain't saving nobody. Save it. Right.
Not at all. Right. So you'll hear me talk a lot as we go through, as I'm trying to make sure the vocal stays up. So this is 3,000 here. And it's giving me a little bit of energy. And then this is just some 6K, just kind of a top lift.
Right. Just
not a lot. Again, 1/4.
Right.
What it sounds like. Right. It's not doing a whole lot.
Added sheen, top of the cymbals, maybe a little bit of sibilance or whatever, but just added shine up top.
So then we go back to this, and what I like about this plugin, what I think I'm going to love about the F6 is I get to see what's happening now. I'm still on. I get to see what happens now as I'm playing the track.
Right. You get a visual representation of what the music is doing.
Yeah. So even at that 4, watch how this still bubbles up quite a lot. Right?
Yeah, right. Still see a pretty good peak there, yep.
And I did take a bunch out. And so here's our kick drum, here's our bass, and we've really come a long way in plugin land with these graphic and analysis and things like that. Right. I will also say another thing is, I don't even have it on. This I usually turn on about
maybe that's that subbiness.
45 could be. I might have turned it off. And I don't normally use the low pass at all because you don't need it. But it does help to have this. Like you can see, there's not a lot going on there, but I can shave off a little bit there,
which will gain you some overall headroom.
It'll tighten it up a little bit.
Yep.
So now that's my EQ, and that's all we do there.
Simple as a pimple.
And now we'll go to this guy. I'm going to turn all these off and sort of bring them in one at a time. And where
I like riding shotgun. We should do this more often.
Yes, sir.
Pull that plug-in down. Maybe
Oh, right,
like
because
2 or
it's
3
like
inches.
because of where we are.
There you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Something I
It
had to
wasn't
get
much.
used to as well.
All
It's
right.
super delayed, but that's plenty.
Perfect.
Right, so this is kind of a mastering. This is made for mastering.
This is made for
It's
mastering.
The Abbey Road TG mastering chain.
It is, and I have to admit, I got it because I'm a rube for anything Abbey Road.
Yep.
And
You've been to
I've
Abbey
been
Road.
I've been
Right.
there. I've had a record. I've had 2 records mastered.
Where's
there.
your same now?
Sick.
Went from same to sick.
Yep.
You know,
I had 2 records mastered there, and I got to pick the brain and sort of really watch a real, true mastering guy, Frank Arkwright, who has mastered a lot of my favorite things. He's really been the guy to do like the Blur box set, the New Order box set, the new Joy Division box set. He does all the Johnny Marr records. He does a lot of my, he's in my sort of wheelhouse of stuff.
Right.
So I'm always a rube for the Abbey Road stuff, and I think it's about 50-50.
I like their
most of
plugs.
it.
I use a lot of them. I haven't found a ton of use for this one, although I do really like the spreader on this. I use that for I use this in places that's not just on a master bus for sure. I'll throw this on a drum bus.
A lot of
or
people do, like
guitar bus.
you can go into the plug-in settings and like here's Yod and like bass drum and like it's super useful.
You can use it for other things, but it is set up to be a kind of a one-stop mastering shop, more or less, or can be.
You can use it just as the only thing you use if you want.
Right.
I at first got it and I kind of played with it a little bit and didn't love it, put it aside, and then I got back into it. You like the TG 1 2 3 4 5
I use
plug-in,
that. Yeah, I use that a little bit.
I can't get into it. I haven't
basically
been able to.
just use it on overheads, but I do really like it on overheads for some reason. Yeah.
Some people really like that thing. This is similar. So this EQ is basically the same kind of similar EQ structure as that. So the first thing that this thing does that's cool is we can play a little bit of this, and what's going to happen, I'm going to turn on, well, you got to learn to do this over here. I'm going to turn on this, so there we go. So as you can hear, subtle, but it does something.
It adds some top.
It adds some top.
Yep.
It adds a little bit of bottom. It knocks out a little bit of mid-range in a certain way. It's their tape emulator, as far as I know.
So it's giving it a little smiley face. A
Yeah.
little predetermined smiley face curve is happening there.
But it's a nice, useful smiley face.
Right.
So helps to not have the plug-in bypass when you're demonstrating.
We're just making sure you guys are paying attention.
We got the music real low in here, so for the mic. So
can't believe you guys didn't catch that. Sleeping,
gotcha.
Unbelievable.
So this is subtle, but it does definitely something right away. And
yeah, I hear it. I hear it open up the top end quite a bit. I hear the cymbals come to life. I do hear a little bit of the bark of the guitar change. There's a little dip somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I didn't even add any gain, but if you needed gain, this will act like a tape emulator. If you push it in there, it'll give more of that feel.
Yep.
I didn't feel like I needed any more of that. You can do all kinds of stuff with this, but that's not going to be germane to
mid-side
us
and all that
just
stuff.
yet.
But we don't need to go there.
So now I'm going to put on this, which is the first thing I did, and the next thing I'm going to use is this spreader. So this is kind of like a little bit of like your Aphex Oral Exciter or whatever those things were. All that stuff that we had in the 90s.
Right, this is just a widener.
It's just a widener, but I feel like this is another one of those things that just got way better with technology. So. So what you're hearing is it's I don't know what it does, to be honest with you. I don't want to know. I know I like it though.
It's like it just turns up the sides
a little bit
somehow, right?
And it's probably has some sort of preset sort of mid-side EQing and things like that, and all that kind of fun stuff. But this is, the first thing I do is I'm going to get that first thing and this last thing. So back to that Eric Valentine thing, I'm now going to be going into that thing.
Right, you're driving into that. That's set now.
That's now my set. Right. And I usually do about 1 to 2 on that, no more, because just for demonstration purposes. It starts to sound funny.
Yeah. It gets a little hyped up.
It's like we talk about, it's McDonald's.
It is that spreader thing. It's like, I know that when I mix this, there's a pair of guitars that are pan hard and left. The overheads are pan hard and left. And it just feels like that stuff that's panned out just gets brought up a little bit. Therefore, making the center feel a little less volume perception and bringing up the sides. It's literally what it says. It's a spreader. It makes it feel wider. It makes the left and right dimension feel like it goes a little further out as well or something.
So the next thing I'd use is, and this thing comes with a whole bunch of different settings. I should copy this over in case I mess up. There we go. This thing comes with a whole bunch of different settings, but you can you can move these around and have the tone second or whatever.
Yeah. Right, yeah, you can reorder
you
all
can
the
reorganize all
modules
this.
And do whatever you want.
This is what I use. The next thing I do is I do use the compressor. So you almost can't tell it's doing anything.
That thing's tickling like not
That's
even
how you know
dB.
you're doing it right.
Right. Right.
So if we'll watch our meters here, so I can tell over it.
Right, she's barely
It's
tickling.
just barely moving, and that's what I want. So I'm using, a 10 ratio, and that's in compression land. That's high. And this is the recovery. The release is on limit, and 2, it's like the second fastest.
Right.
This thing does cool stuff, like you can. Obviously I don't feel like I need these sorts of things, and I didn't use it.
So if you did use that, that's driving that frequency into the side chain. So it's going to compress a little harder based on that information.
It's going to let you boost that up too, or remove it too.
Right.
You can.
Then you can go the other way.
But we don't want it. I didn't need it. You didn't need it.
Right. Mix was too good.
Mix was too good, man. So I didn't use it. But I am using this just to have a little touch of compression on it. Not a lot, because it's definitely like, as you keep stacking these things, because we're going to stack more as we go on.
Right.
It starts to get too much, and you start to get that, it's that McDonald's feeling like you talked about. Like, you're doing it now, and it'll sound awesome, and you're like, you keep turning it up louder and louder, and it seems great. And then you go play it in your car, or you send it to the client, and it's like,
it's
not
too hyped.
very good.
Right. It's plastic.
It's all plasticky, or worse, it's like pumping. Worse yet, it's distorting.
Yeah.
So you gotta
all those things.
You gotta be a little careful. So now that I've got that, and this is where I ended up setting it, I'm using a little bit of makeup gain on it.
A little more now.
Now I got a lot, but I just need a little bit of makeup gain.
But yeah, that makes sense. You're knocking off maybe a dB, so you're bringing that makeup gain back up a dB and a half. So you're getting a little bit of tone out of the box as well. So
now is a good time to actually talk about this. So this is without these 2 plugins on right now, and then I'm bringing the EQ in. It's not adding a lot. Didn't bring up the level much at all. Now I'm bringing this in. It's still not adding a lot.
Right.
I'm not even getting a full.
Right. We're hearing some tone shaping, but we're not gaining a bunch of level.
I'm not doing a lot.
Right.
And then the next thing to do at this point, now that I've started doing a bunch of stuff, is I'm gonna add in. I'm gonna go this move, which is. I didn't even talk about how I set this up. So I always have 3 tracks.
Yep.
Track 1, this is what I'm mastering to.
That's the mix.
These are grouped together. This is the mix 3 parallel, and we'll get to that because I'm going to parallel in a dry mix later.
Right.
And then this is my mix 3 comp, which I mean by what I mean is comparison. So I'm going to...
Right, so you're comparing unaffected with what you've done thus far.
Yeah.
And you this way, having it on 2 faders, you can level match it, you can flip back and forth, not let the hype of volume or anything else trick you.
Yeah, I don't want to make it because as we talked earlier, like anything that's louder feels better.
Yeah.
Almost
every
always.
time. Yep.
And so what I'm doing is I want to see like what I'm doing. This will be much more apparent later.
But already very noticeable.
So we're already opening up the top end a little bit. We've cleared out a little bit of space in the middle.
Yeah, we've
which
lost
we're
some
gonna
of this, some of that mid-range kind of harshy.
Yeah. And now we've gotten to the point where more things are going to start happening. So now I'm going to go to my EQ here, and there's 2 ways of doing EQ in this situation. You can do stereo, you can do mid-side. I chose mid-side. I don't always do mid-side. I do stereo. Probably more often than not, I'll do stereo.
Right.
But I liked kind of what was happening with certain things with the guitars, and it's a guitar song. It's a guitar band.
Right. So you turn up those sides. The guitars, like I said earlier, they're panned far out.
hard
so
panned.
you can bring them up. You can directly affect those.
Yeah,
in
and
mastering.
again, not trying to manipulate the mix too much. I'm just trying to help with what I've changed now.
Yep.
So the way this thing works is it's got all these frequencies. They're pre-selected. This was off the desk at Abbey Road, one of the main ones.
So that's all the EQ points that are on the desk. They've just modeled them into this plugin, essentially.
So what it does is it does this. I'm going to just kind of scroll through these all and talk about what these each are. So it's going to not sound awesome for a little while, but this is the meat of it all. So obviously that's our super top end, right?
11K.
Doesn't sound great by itself. I've got a little bit there in the mid.
Yep, half a dB in the middle, not on the sides, right?
Now this is the sides.
Got 11 on the same frequency point.
And a
more,
dB there.
just a little more maybe, or same. I can't tell from here.
A little bit more.
Just a taste more. Right?
Now here comes that vocal.
Yep.
When we talked about, I'm using this to help me get the vocal up again.
Right. And that's in the center.
Because as we keep smashing things down, we're going to smush the vocal in.
Right.
And so I want to make sure it still comes back up. And if anybody has any questions or anything as I go,
yeah, right.
Certainly.
Brandy says you're doing great, Kris.
Oh, good.
Thanks for explaining exactly why you are doing everything.
Ah, good.
Diane was
Good.
showing some love too on YouTube.
Very
I
good.
got to do
If anybody's got any like
YouTube.
questions,
Get the YouTube up.
I'll try to answer them as best I can.
Yeah,
I'm not the greatest
I'll
at
keep
this,
an eye on the chat, so if you want me to ask anything.
I have so many questions.
Oh, there you go. Well,
But let's keep going.
Yeah. So the next thing is and we're still in the mids, and we'll talk about what mid side is in a minute. That's a little bit of our cloudiness, but this 181 hertz is going to help out our low end feel a little bit. I've got a little bit added in there, and then what this thing does here is it's got different bells and shapes. So
right, these are named in a funny way, so I've never quite understood exactly. I mean, I can hear what they're doing, but I don't know what they're doing because of those names.
yeah, if you look at the RS56 EQ,
I think I got
it has
that
the same bell, it has the same kind of things,
Yeah.
and it'll you can see by the waveform what it's doing a little bit better, but I don't actually know how to articulate this plugin quite exactly, but this is more this is a full-on low-end lift. And this is like more of a blend. I don't know if blend is what that means.
Yeah, right.
But it's more of a hump in this frequency. And then the Q gets very narrow and more peaky as it goes up. And I honestly don't understand what this does. It's confusing to me.
Yeah, because that's definitely not 181 hertz anymore. It's like
I've never bothered to. I don't know if that means it's a dip at 181 anymore
right.
or what, but like I've never bothered to read the white papers. I
Yeah,
just use my
there's
ears.
manuals for these things, but no one reads those things.
And then lastly, in the middle again.
Right in the center.
little more, 128 is again what we talked about, that sort of typical fundamental kick drum frequency.
Yep.
And so, again, I'm trying to make sure that doesn't go away because, as we've talked about now a couple times, vocal kick drum.
Yep.
Kind of the things you really got to have a handle on. And then as we go over here to the side, again, not fun sounding stuff for
more
now.
Air, 11K.
So I'm going to skip through this as fast as I can. Why won't I? There we go. I'm going to just loop this section of the song for a second. And then here's our guitars. I wanted more of those guitars. And one thing to mention as we're soloing these frequencies, it's just sort of showing you what exactly that frequency sounds like.
Right, it's just zooming in on that spot. Right.
So it's not what it does in the track. So I'm adding a little bit there. Again, not big moves.
Right, 1 dB.
1 dB. Yeah. Nothing here. Nothing here.
Right. No lower mid range or bottom on the sides. You leave that in the center.
I left that on your track. I left this alone. Sometimes more often than not, if I'm using mid side, I'm gonna chop some stuff out of here.
Right.
Because especially at like 512, 724, kind of honkier,
boxy stuff,
useless things.
Right.
So let's take this off for a second. Get out of the solo. And I'm still learning toddler. There we go. So that's off. Back on.
It definitely wakes it up a bit.
Yeah.
You know? Yep.
And it's not massive. So now let's go back and forth again.
That's original.
This is the orig. Now I'm going to bump that up a little bit because we are gaining heat. So now this mix sounded great to us, but now it's starting to feel a little boxy.
Right. Yeah. Because we're hearing
in
something that can directly compare it against itself, right?
But I haven't made it sound super different either.
Right. I just hear a lift in the high end and
everything's
and
cleaned
a little
up a
less
little bit,
of that, like I said, that throat. It's like AM/FM.
Right. So that's kind of that. So that's our chain thus far. And then if we listen to it this way,
right, we're back to flat. We're back to the raw mix.
Yeah.
Essentially. Right.
All right, and then the last thing is that this thing has in it that's got going for it is this presence knob, and this is just like a lift at 10K.
Right.
And it's just air, as we like to talk about all the time. So with it, without, with it, almost unintelligible.
Yep. Wakes up, you hear the ride cymbal maybe a little better.
Super tiny bit.
Yep.
That's again, this is another one of those things. It's a little bit of a pre-emphasis thing because now we're getting to the more fun things.
Right, we're gonna bring the limiter in.
We're gonna bring the limiter. So let's see where we're at on the loudness meter here, and I'm gonna go to this other one. This is called Pro Audio DP Meter 5, another free one for you. This is a great one because of this. I've turned it off and I'll reset it. Notice we're dropping down. It's not a fully accurate thing. It's not anything to get concerned about, but it's just showing like I've gone up about 2 dB now because I have whacked into this. This will get up to about 14 or a little bit more. So we still haven't changed the overall volume of the track that much.
Right.
And so before we get on the limiter, I think we should talk real quick about loudness and all that stuff. So mastering somehow got into this loudness, whereas we can all talk about the Metallica records and all that kind of stuff. Because
they started going above and beyond.
They just wanted to kill it.
They wanted to be as loud as they could be, and they were.
And they were. They were really
distorted
loud and ugly sounding.
A lot of people were really upset with it, right?
And then we got into streaming, and we got Spotify and YouTube and Bandcamp and Tidal and all these other services. And so it's really opened up. There's a mastering studio called Mystery Room Mastering. They're out of Wisconsin. They do great work. If you're looking for, if you're looking for like super pro level results, they're one of the places I would recommend in the area. They have a really great FAQ page, and it talks about like how mastering the rules keep changing on us as we're going. And like, I mean, you and I, when we mixed and mastered stuff in back, which you mentioned, we had a basement studio. He had a basement studio that we partnered up on.
Right, in St. Paul.
Once upon a time in St. Paul, and that's
many years ago.
Right. But we would just try to make things as loud as we could, and they never really got loud enough anyhow.
Yeah, right, because we didn't have really any mastering gear. We had, analog 24 track and a console and all this stuff, and you print to your whatever we had, DAT machine or whatever, and you had to set it so you didn't want to peak it. So whatever was right below peak, that was as loud as you could get it, and that was that. And there was no limiter.
And then you gave it to the mastering guy, and he gave you one master back.
Right.
He gave you a PM, a postmaster CD.
Right.
Now you can get 4 to 5 masters off the same thing. So you're going to have your CD, you're going to have your Bandcamp version, you're going to have your streaming services. You can have a properly made MP3 master if you want.
Right.
You also have your vinyl masters.
Right. And they're all different.
And they're all different.
The rules and regulations are a little different now, right?
And there's another site called Mastering the Mix, and I was trying to look it up before we got on, but they have an FAQ page that talks about this thing that they can go in much more detail than we're going to go into because it's not that exciting.
Right. Look it up if you're
interested.
Look it
up. Right. It just basically says, like, if you send the hot CD level mastering to Spotify,
you get penalized.
Or
they'll put a crusher on it.
Smashed down.
They'll put a crusher on it. Your mix will not sound as good anymore because it's beyond their acceptable level of volume. So they'll just knock it back down with whatever they use, and it's probably not going to be sonically very happy. Right.
Straight into -14.
Right.
And it's okay to have something a little bit hotter than that or a little bit lower than that, but you kind of want to be close to that.
Right.
Whereas CDs are -9. You want to be pretty close to -9. And that will that'll get you kind of where you want to be. So
-14 for the streaming platforms?
Typically, yes.
More or less. We're going ballparky, and -9 for a CD master. That's good. The good numbers to know.
That's good numbers to know. So now we get into the fun thing. I'll shut this off for a second. This is the FabFilter Pro L2. I had been using the Oxford Sonics limiter for a long time. Ed turned me on to this one, where basically is like, you got to get this one instead. I was like, how am I going to do that after I just spent $250 on this limiter?
Spoiler alert, I bought this thing today because we've been talking about it forever, and it was either download the demo so Kris could use the demo, which he's about to purchase a bundle of this stuff. I already have a bunch of the Fab filters, but I just decided to break out the old PayPal account and see what it could do today. It was able to handle it just fine.
Yeah. And so this thing is the final thing, or the second to final thing in the chain.
I think that, just for us, I think that once we go into this and have this on, that we should go back to Mutamatic, because I think even if we're talking over it,
getting loud?
It's going to be so loud that we're not going to hear ourselves talk over it.
All right, so I'll be stopping and starting then from here on out.
Otherwise, it's just going to be, I don't know how hard it's been to hear us over some of the other playback,
but it's pretty much like
it's got to be pretty neck and neck.
It's going to be
okay. So yeah, we'll be stopping to talk, so you're getting full res audio quality of the mix and not hearing this microphone that we're talking into as well.
So one nice thing about this thing is it has pretty good help hints, and I'll skim through it, but you'll see like things like true peak limiting. You can read all that later. Basically, you kind of want that on, unless you know why you don't want it.
It starts off on, right.
Oversampling is if we could use 32 and we had a real crushing computer, yours might. Mine cannot handle even 16.
Mine might get upset about it, but you never know.
So I do four times. Again, you can, if you want to look up what this means, you can later. Because it's a little boring, but you want a little bit of that. It just helps you get a little bit better results. And especially if you're, as it says, especially if you're limiting or aggressively. No, we're not going to be aggressive very much. But so without further ado, let's get into this. I mean, it kind of is everything, and it kind of isn't. It is everything. It's working really well because we've set up the track for it.
Right. You've done all your tone shaping prior to getting to this thing. Now you're kind of just putting the final level limit.
Yeah, and I'm using it to pump it up. So like we can look at. So over here you'll see like how much reduction is. It's not a lot. Because I don't want a lot, because the more it is, so 4.2. Let's just show everybody what it does when you're... Now, it got a heck of a lot louder, but it also gets really distorted, starts to pump. You start to notice it more.
Right, and we're seeing over on our meter over there that we're at -6, so we're beyond CD level now.
We're really smashing it.
We're into distortion at that point.
We don't want that. But so I got I got 4.2 on it, and then it has this thing. So for the track itself, I have dynamic. This has a bunch of different styles. I picked dynamic because it felt like the best to me.
Yep.
I have to say the aggressive and punchy ones have felt just a little too much always so
too
far.
Too aggressive and punchy?
Too punchy, too aggressive. Might be good on a quieter mix, but on a big, full spectrum, smashing frequency mix like this, not helping.
And this thing defaults to dynamic, I believe, right?
It's either dynamic or all around. I think it might be all around, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
This is the look ahead, and so what this does is it looks ahead for you, and
right, it literally starts to look and see what's coming. If there's a big peak coming, it has time to kind of prepare for it, right? So it's adapting to the source material a little bit before it gets there. It's kind of predetermining what's going to happen.
As you crank this back, your mix will get more aggressive and louder feeling, but also it has a tendency, again, to get more distorted, so we don't want to use too much of that.
Right.
Attack and release I have just kind of set, and we'll come back to this release thing, because if certain things were certain ways, I might have picked a longer release. I generally favor shorter releases because I don't want to feel the limiter.
I seem to feel the same, right?
You get that sort of undulating, the mixes kind of pushing and pulling. I don't like and I don't enjoy that.
Undulating, folks.
Undulating. Word of the day.
Look that one up.
Joe likes it when it gets a little undulating.
Yeah. Don't we all?
You still alive back there, Brad?
I'm good. It's all in. This is great.
He's undulating right now.
He's on the edge of his seat.
Yeah.
What's going to happen next?
He's starting his own mastering.
I've even got questions for later.
So now the other thing is the attack. I've got it set about here. Generally, shorter attack times are safer. Longer times are louder. The attack means how fast is the limiter going to react and smack things down.
How fast is it going to respond to that incoming snare
wait,
drum or hit? Or
is it going
to let some of that through and then grab it? Is it going to grab it right away and suck it down? It's just like these are very similar to the controls on a compressor and act very, very similarly.
Very accordingly.
Yeah.
These are good, useful, because the Fab Filter L2 is, you can put it on your vocal bus.
Right.
You can put it on your drum bus.
Right.
You can have it be on your
This doesn't
bass.
have to be just a mix bus thing at all. This can hold a lot of things in place and give you perceived level if you need it. Right?
Yeah, and also eliminate peaks if you need to.
Right.
If you have a drummer who, say, has a vendetta against drum cymbals and tries to kill them all the time.
We don't know any guy.
I don't know any guy like that.
No way.
But if you do, this is one way to help ameliorate that.
This comes up in vocals for me a lot too, whether it's a real plosive word or just every once in a while you hear like the way it was recorded, maybe it was aggressive compression or whatever, and you'll hear a lip smack or something before a word, and it comes out like gangbusters compared to the rest of the vocal. A limiter can definitely help knock those in at times, or just kind of control some of that.
So this is a more useful plugin than just for mastering. It's a limiter that you can use on tons of different things.
Right.
The last two controls are the transients and the channel link release. What those do is if you have the transient at 100%, it just does it on a stereo
left and right
the same.
So if a tom smashes on the right side, it's going to knock that left side down as well. Right.
As
you can choose how much to unlink that.
I usually unlink it a little bit. I chose about this much.
Right.
Usually I would do a little bit more. Release is the same thing. I like to leave that usually all the way up.
Right.
You can get a little more transparency out of it and loudness, as the thing says. But I usually just kind of leave this all the way up for now.
Yep.
Or what I've been doing with the time I've had with this plugin.
Right.
And then the other thing that this thing does, and we're gonna use this on the end too, but it shows you.
It's got a lot of nice metering in there.
Metering. So like we talked about that luff. Now, why is this not my last thing in the chain, and why do I have that here? And this is essentially what you're using for the stream. This is our master fader.
Right. This is just a master fader. Right. We've just changed it to an AUG so I can put a send to the stream on it, because you can't put a send on a master fader in Pro Tools, which is kind of stupid. Right.
But what I'm doing is now I've got this parallel we talked about in the beginning, where I'm going to bring in the clean, unprocessed audio underneath it a little bit.
Right.
So what I got, negative 8.1. Oh, I got to undo that. Hang on. So let's just listen to it, and I'm going to bring it in. There's more of your vocal.
Yeah, right.
It's back.
And it brings some of that like mid-range kind of dirt or whatever you want to call it on the guitars that was in that original mix. It kind of tucks it back in nicely under the now slightly more hi-fied version. So you get kind of the best of both worlds, because you're still hearing that original mix underneath the EQ'd and limited version,
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip back and forth. This is that comparative mix that I have.
So that's raw mix.
This is the raw mix.
Yep. And this is just, again, so you can level match your affected master with the parallel directly A-B to the raw mix and volume match. So again, you're not being tricked by louder will sound better every time. So this is an important part to get these two.
Yeah. You definitely want to not get tricked by it's louder is better. Because it
just always
is. Yep. So here's I'm going to skip back and forth. Go to the dynamic middle section here
in the phones,
check this.
That's like crazy.
Yeah,
different.
It's crazy different, but at the same time, the mix is not super altered. Mm-hmm. I hammer that because I've had so many records ruined by some knob with the knobs, and you can't get it back. It's like once that's done, and I don't know, man.
Yeah, I've been there. I've unfortunately, like I said, I've experienced it both ways, where I get a master back from a mastering guy, and I'm like jumping up and down, going, "Wow, man, this mix sounds even better than I thought." Or that other side of the coin where you're like, "Fuck, was it on my end?
What did I do?
Did I send him something bunk, and this is all he could do, or like, does this guy just suck at mastering?" Hard to know sometimes.
The other problem with that is it reflects poorly on you and your work.
Right.
And people hear it and they look at the guy who recorded it and they're like, "Oh, this isn't very good." And so it's always a dance. But
definitely not going to Tap's place for that.
Right. Wow. What a mess.
So here's the middle section that's not getting smashed. All right, so
it just fills in, right? You feel the guitars more. You
Yeah.
feel the sheen of the cymbals more. It just sounds more finished. It sounds like a final product, which is kind of what you want.
You also can kind of hear a little bit better what's happening in that section.
Right, just
in the
clarity in
middle.
general, right?
And it's not pumping because everything is very subtle. And that's another thing is like when you really smash things hard, then you get to these sections. When this comes back in, right here. You don't get that explosion back into the chorus. It's just like the same level.
Yeah, right.
So then it's very unexciting.
Over limited. Yeah, it's like over limiting is a bummer because typically when you build your mix or your arrangement or all of it, you build sections so that when a chorus comes in, it hits hard and stuff adds. If you limit the shit out of it so that the small bridge part is all the way up, instead of adding and really having the chorus smash in, it just kind of mushes in and stays the same volume.
It's very unexciting and
impact.
unrewarding.
Right. So you got to be careful. You don't want to. I mean, limiting is like seductive because you can just keep pushing it up and get it louder and louder.
Right.
But you will start to choke dynamics. You will start to lose impact. And while it will all be loud, it will all be mushy and loud, and that's not the desired effect.
Well, then that takes us to the last bit, the last two things, which is we talked a little bit about what's it like when you get a smashed up mix.
Right, and try to do the same moves.
The same thing.
Right.
So I did a similar, I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but I did a similar thing with this. And so this is his mix with everything
right, like I
pushed
said,
forward.
and I would typically not send it with a limiter, but Kris said just send it all, man. Send the whole thing, your reference mix with all the limiting and anything you got on it. So that's what I gave him here.
And this gives us, again, this still will sound pretty good, but here's the difference between the two things. I don't quite have them volume matched. So this is his smash version, and so pay attention to the way like the snare drum and the cymbals are sounding right now.
Probably the wall.
You said you had the Millennia EQ and something else.
my go-to stuff. I was just wondering what limiter, but I almost always have an SSL style compressor. So that would have been the whatever that plug-in Alliance Townhouse one.
Oh, right.
And then I had the Millennia EQ on there, and then probably this limiter called the Wall, which I have been using a bit. I typically use that on my drum bus, but that may have been on the mix bus. It was either that or just L2, because I hadn't bought Pro L2 yet. But now that I have, you can expect.
Now that you're professional,
you can expect
much
that
more professional
next time I
results.
send something, if there's a limiter on it, you will be able to deduce that it's likely Pro L2.
Yes.
Fab Filter, feel free to hit us with that endorsement.
Help a brother out.
Yeah,
I just gave you a bunch of money.
That stuff's not. Did you buy them today?
I have
you're
not.
About to buy them today?
I'm about to buy them.
About to run that.
Shout out
I'm
Brett
gonna
P in the chat.
Your mix looks great. Thanks, Brett. It's all about
Looks
the look,
great.
man.
Yeah, looks really good, guys.
Yep.
That's kind of the equivalent, like, hey, you guys look like you're having fun up there.
Hey, Brett, don't let the cat out of the bag. I teased next week's guest, but I did not say who it was yet. So keep your mouth shut over.
Brad reined it in.
Don't steal my thunder just yet.
Brad's laughing, so I'm doing something right. Anyway,
So here's our last move, which is I'm going to put another limiter on at the end.
You've got the mix that you've EQ'd. You've then gone through the Abbey Road and done a little more EQ, a little bit of compression. Then you've got the limiter on the mix. Then you've got a parallel dry mix in with that.
Correct.
And now both of those faders are going over to a master fader.
Gets bussed to the master fader.
Where we are now going to go with just a little more final limiting, it looks like. There's a
really
second
tiny.
limiter here. Yep.
So we're going to watch this, and then I'm going to show you that thing I was telling you about having maybe a little problem in your mix. And this wasn't a problem.
I like how
but
he's sugarcoating it.
I know. But first thing we're doing is this. So notice I have no gain added.
Right.
I've got the transparent mode on this thing. A little bit of look ahead, immediate attack. Lease, I've completely unlinked the channels in transients, but I've again have left the release on here.
Yep.
True peak limiting, I've got 8 sampling.
Yep.
If my computer could handle it, I'd probably do as much as I could.
Right.
But it's fine. We're not doing a send it off to the presses thing right now.
Right, not yet. But as soon as the people hear this fire.
Yeah, I know, right? So what we're going to listen for is hopefully nothing. I want to just see. We're going to see a little bit of stuff up here. It's just going to tamp it down,
This is
and
just
we're going to
a little
remove
bit of peak reduction,
the
I'm
overs.
assuming. Right. Just taking away the overages so we can set it right at that, whichever one you want, whether it's CD or whatever, you're going to be able to set it so it's sitting right there and not bumping above that.
So now we're doing the CD version first because everybody still loves CDs, I
yeah.
guess. I've got
CD's
a lot.
nuts. What?
But, you know, so that is basically about where I want to be. I've still got a little bit of headroom, and if I wanted to, I could push this up
that a little bit,
but I
yeah.
don't want to.
Right.
Because I'm just looking for, again, if we watch this top line here,
Yep.
where my arrow is, very minor, and I'm just knocking
Right.
off those overs.
Right, we're just touching that line, basically, yep.
And then let's say we're gonna do our thing for Spotify. You can do it a bunch of different ways, and we can get into what's pro and what's not pro and all that other bullshit.
Right, but it's got what's nice is this meter gives us like that's the streaming target.
So right
there.
now, notice
Negative
it's
4.
So when you get it through, there is a website called loudnesspenalty.com.
Oh yeah.
You
I've
can
seen
throw
it.
your mix in there, and
It'll
it'll
tell you.
show you. You can click through the streaming
Right.
things and see how fucked you are.
Right.
And
You know what? Let's move that plug just a little
yeah,
bit
God,
over.
sorry.
Yep. So the peeps
Let's
can
see
see
our-
it.
There we
Yeah,
go.
it's showing us on this plugin. If you can look right over where Chris' cursor is right now. Like that's the target for streams. And right now,
Yeah.
because we were working on our CD level master, we are overshooting that target. So if we did send this to Spotify, they would put the clamp on us, and our mix would not sound great anymore.
So in what
shrink this
way
up a
would
little
you
bit.
go to adjust that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Joe, because I'm about to show you.
But
So-
I need the bass back.
So, like I said, there's different ways of doing this, but this plugin comes with an output leveler.
Just enough to make it through tonight. Thought about it on the drive back. Thought about it way too fucking long. Pumping through me like a heart attack. Skipping beats, forgetting what's the song.
And we would futz with this, and you have to do the whole track.
Right.
You have to put in
Yeah.
that work.
You got to look at it and make sure you're not getting some over somewhere along the way that are really bumming you out, because you'll slip back into that penalty pretty quick.
Yeah.
I bet. Right.
But you can be especially if your mix is dynamic or your
Right.
master's dynamic, you can be a little
It can't
over.
just sit over.
That's okay.
Right.
Because they'll just tamp it down a little bit. And if you're curious, you can try that loud. I don't know how accurate that is, but I've been told
Sure.
it's fairly accurate.
Yeah.
And you can put it into that kind of a website and see what happens. And I will do that from time to time just to make sure that I'm not getting too crazy on something. And, what kind of... well, Brett, what's pro and what's not pro? You must have come in late.
Yeah, he
and
did, which is not pro. First
not
of all.
unprofessional.
Yeah, I'll tell you that much. He did have practice tonight, so
I guess dude's
Yeah.
got to rock. Got to justify those plex.
that's
but,
right. Pay for those plex.
What I had said earlier in the game was that this was sort of we're talking about in the box mastering that you can do yourself at home. If I were to do this at a pro level, I would be running it through hardware. If you go to a mastering house, they have real hardware and real gear and real metering and all that stuff that.
Yeah. We're doing it down and dirty.
We're doing it down
Pro
and dirty.
Tools or whatever your DAW of choice is. If you have similar, it doesn't have to be these plugins.
It doesn't.
This limiter we have found seems to be one of the better ones. There's a lot of options out there, but almost every software system you have has free plugins. There's free EQs. There is free limiters. There's ways to do this.
You totally
without...
can master a track with just the basic Avid plugins.
This just makes it easier.
It's not great,
right?
But
this makes it easier because there's more options and
better
there's
tools.
more metering, and it is a better hammer. But you can pound a nail with whatever hammer you can find.
Yeah.
You can even pound it in with a screwdriver if you have to.
If you got to get it in there, that's what you got to do. But this is useful for that. So I'm doing a record for these guys. I'm mastering it right now, almost done, and they need a version for Spotify streaming. They need a mastered version for they're gonna press CDs, and they want to be able to do vinyl later, and that's another interesting, and it might be a whole different topic to get into. But
you got a couple new parameters with
you got
vinyl.
new parameters,
Right.
especially the big one, which is de-essing.
Right.
You really and what I have
De-essing
learned.
and low end, right? You can't push a ton of low end onto a vinyl
You got to be
record.
careful.
Right.
So like a good cutting guy will take care of it, some of it for you, but like Dave Gardner is he was working over at I'm not going to say their name, but
the one in LA.
no, it was a local place.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
That wronged me, and I'm not
had
going to
that
get into
talk.
it. But and that's why Brad's my dude, and I'll plug Brad. Brad has been the project manager for multiple things I have done.
Brad's everyone's dude.
Stress-free.
You need a Brad.
Stress
in your
free.
life.
He
If you have a
calls the
band and you
medium
don't have a
box.
Brad, you're cheating yourself.
And but Dave, who is a uber stud, awesome dude, mensch,
Gardner's awesome.
the
Yep.
greatest guy. I miss him terribly. He used to live in Minneapolis. He moved away from us, but he, was like, look, man, when you're gonna do vinyl, you got to get really heavy on the de-essing. In fact, you should be doing it in your mix, and you may want to actually have a different mix set up
Special.
for
Right.
if you really want to get deep on it.
Yeah.
Frank Arkwright also said a similar thing, but he was like, it's okay. You just have to make sure that if there's anything really hard going on, that you take care of it. Which leads us now, segues perfectly into that thing I was talking about, which is this. I gotta find it because I didn't bring my session in. Right there. Okay, so just watch the that. Now, if I wanted to have a longer release time, like I would like to have, maybe, but it didn't on this one. Watch what happens.
Right.
That's the feeling of undulating.
Right, and knock the whole mix
That
down, and it
sucks.
stays down for that.
And you
for
feel
that
it.
amount of release time. Right, you hear the whole thing dip because of that spike in the vocal, which is triggering.
Now,
Is triggering the dude.
we could have we did do a little bit of back and forth on stuff, and
We turned
I-
these vocals up.
We turned them up.
Yep.
Because as the singer of the band or as the person in the band, you undermix yourself.
Yeah, right. Plus, it's a demo. First one I've sang in forever. Yeah, it's my
Yeah.
natural inclination to just like crank
You
up
just
the
want to
guitar.
tuck yourself in a little bit.
Yeah. When you're mixing your own voice, you're probably not putting it up on the moon like you would if it was someone else's record.
Yeah. Now this isn't a problem, but it would be a problem if I like had really gotten sold on the longer release time and then got here and got. That no one wants that.
Right. It's max it.
You want to talk about on pro, so that's not great.
This would be one of those moments where if you do have a good relationship with your mastering engineer and you did indeed want that thing, that you would literally just call me up and go, hey man, will you print me another
Send me a
one?
new mix.
And in this point of the chorus, at this syllable, I need you to just automate that guy down, whatever it is, 2-3 dB. Take that spike off of there because that spike is going to sync us for what I really want to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in this case, it really didn't. It's probably no one would have noted it. It is still there. because my release time is quick enough,
it's just
a
right,
split second
right,
of
right.
knockdown.
Yeah, it's a big plosive. That's a hard J on there, and I'm sure it's sucking up a lot of headroom.
Yeah,
it just is. Yep.
So and that gets in that. So that takes care of that topic. But that's what I was going to bring up with like sometimes there is an issue in the mix, and
right.
I would happily reprint somebody a mix if it was possible to do.
Oh, totally. If you got that feedback.
When you're in the real mastering guy and he's got the analog hardware chain set up and you're paying many hundreds of dollars an hour, that's not really an option.
Right. Unless you're like literally on your rig and he's like, hey, can you do this right now and have it to me in 3 minutes? And you're like, yeah,
he would have to really like you.
Right.
And the band
you'd have to have a good relationship, which
have a real good relationship.
Is not super easy to develop with mastering guys because mastering guys are much like studio guys. They're kind of on their own. They kind of like you kind of send them work, they do their stuff, and they send it back. You don't really hang with them that much.
It's very rare to attend mastering. Really,
I've gone to a few, but yeah, it's rare, and I can tell that the guys probably don't really want you there. It's kind of like attending mixing in the first stages, like. If a band's going to come listen to a mix, I want them to come when I'm like 80% at
almost
least done. Right.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, yo, what time you starting? 11? Cool, man. I'll be there at 11. And start like to hear you start working on kick drum, like get out of here.
Yeah,
Go do something fun for your day. Like I do not want someone over my shoulder micromanaging or asking a zillion questions because it breaks your flow. Like you get into a flow and you're just kind of pulling up plugins and doing your thing. And if you got to stop and go like, oh, well, this is why I'm doing this to the snare drum, whatever. It's just it's not good for the band or for you or for the final product.
It does depend on the band, though, because there are certain bands that I would welcome their presence or certain people. Like if you sat with me on this master, it'd be fine. I wouldn't mind at all because you know how to hang. And some bands know how to hang and they won't. They know they should wait until the time is right to ask.
Right.
And like
some people don't quite get that. Is Brett's still in the chat? Oh, hey,
Brett's still in the chat.
So when that
I'm just kidding, Brett.
So yes, you really do need different mastering mixes for different. You know, it depends on how in depth you want to get. But yes,
the different platforms are starting to require their own thing. The old crank it up for the CD does not really fly on the streaming platforms anymore. Like I said, they'll still accept it, but they're going to run their filters or their limiting on it to get it back down into their ballpark, and they're probably going to take a lot of the goodness away from the overall mix.
They'll suck it right out of it.
Because it's just a quick algorithm. They don't give a shit. They feel like you messed up by sending it too hot, and you're just getting the generic slap down where it just pushes it down, and what's left is what's left. Good luck with your streams, bros.
And that kind of concludes everything. I'm using this as my final thing. I'm not doing much with it. In this, this is just the strength of the scale of the metering for you to see.
Yep, metering
but
scale.
I
and
want
then
it
the box
finer,
down low
and
is
then
showing us your different options.
And you can even make your own version and say what you want it to be.
You're sending your song into What's That Noise?
Yeah,
right.
You better be pro.
Crank it up. 0.
And then it also gets in. There's also like different things for video and like
right.
They have their own requirements, 48K and.
Are you ever using
iTunes?
Dither?
I normally don't dither in the plugin.
I've always been slightly confused mystified by dither. I usually always leave it off too because I don't fully understand.
We've talked about. Is dithering not like when you're going from?
It's when you're going down somehow.
Right.
So
if
like
you're down sampling.
For example,
if this was all at 48K and you wanted to print it at 41, you would dither it down.
You have to dither it down. So I just did a record for a really weirdly a country band that I got to do, and it turned out great. But I did the session at 88.1, which is higher than I would normally do it. But it was such small instrumentation. It was banjos and mandolins.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to try to see, after doing that Jayhawks record, which had been done on 96, I was kind of became a believer a little bit of it. And so... But I wanted
especially
to do
on that
88.1.
acousticy stuff. I
yeah,
believe
when you can
that
hear
the air
all
around
the
that
air
stuff.
notes, around
I
the notes, you
believe
can
that.
really tell. And so I got done with that record. I did it at 88.1. It's a band called Megan and the Birdwatcher. Probably one of the best singers. I mean, top 10 singers I've ever seen in Flowers by easily, and probably closer to top 5. And there's a lot of good people that have been through that room. And
That's
so I
right.
got done with this record. I did it at 88.1. I mastered it at 88.1, and I made a session at 88.1 to do the mastering, and then I had to dither it out.
Right.
This plugin has its own dither, and you can do, all kinds of different what bits you want it
Yep.
to be at,
Yep.
and then let's say we're gonna do it for a CD, so we got to go down to 16
Right.
bits. Noise shaping, these things, I'll be honest, are a little gray because every plugin seems to do something different.
Totally. Who knows what's
And
running
I'm
in the background
kind
of that
a
algorithm?
little worried about what's happening, so I usually don't
Just leave it be.
do anything like that, and I'll
Right.
just dither. I use, for this particular thing, I did use the plugin. For something simple normally like this, you would just do it in the bounce out of Pro Tools,
Right.
because I am gonna do a bounce at
Right,
the end
and
of
it
this.
will
or I would.
control that dither if it's downsampling. It's gonna add whatever it needs to accommodate it.
Yeah, and and we have we have enough headroom left in the mix still that if it does add that little like half dB or like 0.2 dB or something like that, you'll be fine. It
Right.
won't affect anything
Right.
really.
What are you looking at over there, Joe?
I'm managing
Just kind of
this.
getting.
He's
just getting
just
comfortable
doing it
over
all.
there?
I gotta produce this thing, man.
really making it happen over
The
here, I
show's
have to
gotta
say.
happen. Just wait
Dave,
till you
Dave
watch it.
Johnson in the chat.
Oh,
What's up?
you
Dave?
joined at the end. Dave's late to the chat.
Unbelievable.
It's good to see you, though, David. I wish
Good to virtually see your
virtually
name
see you.
and your little
Well,
green dot.
I was a little worried that this wouldn't take very long, but as always, I can really talk. And
When you said that, like,
9:45 it is.
once it gets going in here, man, it gets going.
just
and I will
goes. They
say,
fly.
this is so important because, like, we now live in the single culture, right? And a lot of dudes, it's like, okay, we do an album, we do a short EP, or we're doing a collection of songs, we'll get that mastered, right? But if we're going to rip off some singles in between to just keep posting up content and new songs,
Right.
a lot of guys will have that mastered by a dude that's not necessarily a real mastering dude, or even try to tackle it themselves. So, like, what an important topic. For
Sure,
folks
if you're
trying
going to
help
do
out
it
too.
yourself,
Right.
you may as well
I
get a
agree,
little bit of direction from KJ here, who's done
educational.
quite a bit of this. And again,
Yeah.
using tools that you may already have, or you certainly have a similar equivalent within your
Yeah, this is
plugin
all
folder.
cheap stuff. I mean, if you didn't get the Pro L2, like this, you wait long enough,
It was
$29.
It was $29 today.
This
I
you wait long
almost
enough,
bought it. Right.
it's $29.
Exactly.
You got $60 into your
Right.
mastering chain.
Right.
You can get a good limiter. I mean, there's the Massey L2007
Right.
is old, but still a really
Yeah.
good
That's
limiter.
free.
You can get it
You
free.
can get a free
It just
version.
doesn't hold-
It
You have
just
no
doesn't
recalls.
save
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
preset.
save.
But if you write a little note down in the comment, which is what I used to do,
Yep,
then
yep.
you just pull it back up every time or
What's
whatever.
that, David? Dave's working like a dog. Yeah, we've talked about that. He is kind of working like a dog.
It's good to see you, Dave.
It is good to see you,
We're-
though.
Yeah, we're working on this demo that I sent you, Dave, of what could, maybe we've talked about this before a little bit on the stream. You can use this moment to talk about it a little more, but we have been over at Flowers recording some attention material from back in the day with the lineup that existed back in that day, which is Dave, who's in the chat, our good friend Jeremy Burgo is the bass player, Kris was the lead guitar player, and I was the rhythm guitar player and singer. So we have been over there. We talked about this. I mean, literally, I have Dave to thank for this song because I had not written a song from top to bottom in quite a while. And when I was talking to David and talking to Kris one night about maybe going into the studio over at Flowers and getting the old band back together, et cetera, and Dave was like, yeah, man, recording an old song would be cool or whatever, but be really fun to record a new song. Like, what's up with that? And I was kind of like, like I've said to all of you guys, like, I haven't been writing. I haven't had a band to write for, so I haven't felt the need to write or whatever. Like, it hasn't been that thing, And Dave was like, well, man, it'd be cool to hear it. And
Can
was
I
like,
get a co-writer credit?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Change a word, get a third,
Right.
David.
Spoken
That's
like,
how that works.
Spoken like a true drummer. You might have to add a signature fill, and then we can talk about it.
That mailbox.
But yeah, I hung up the phone with those guys, and like I literally thought to myself, I don't know if I think I've said it on the stream before, but I literally was like, man, I've been saying for years like I haven't had a reason to write a song, and that's why I haven't. Like, I wonder now if I'm literally just saying that out of habit or if it's true. And frankly, like I said, Dave asked for a new song. So I felt like I had a reason. So not only was it like a kind of a question from him, but it really was a catalyst, and it kind of made me kick myself in the ass and go like, well, you said if you had a reason you could do it. Dave just gave you a reason, so where's this song at, dude? And this is what came out. You know, I talked about it before, but I gave myself 24 hours to write and record and finish this thing because I did not want to get. It's so easy to be like, okay, this is the first song I've written in years, and I'm gonna fucking work on it for months and months and just get stuck in this, you know, hamster wheel of not moving forward. So I gave myself some real quick guidelines and parameters. I decided not to go over the top with the drumming or the bass playing or guitar overdubs because I wanted to leave room for people like Kris and Dave and Burgo that if indeed we do record this song again in the future, people have room to come up with their shit and not just like, you know, I've jammed everything in the kitchen sink in there and I've gotten super demo-itis about it and I want to hear the guitars a certain way or the drum fills a certain way. Like I left it raw, but yeah, I mean, I say all that to say we did go record an old song at Flowers. We've talked about potentially recording another old song at Flowers that was unreleased, potentially maybe even this one, and we have had cameras rolling over there. So there will be footage of the attention sessions, and then we definitely want to introduce Flowers more to the stream, and we're going to do a little studio tour and just hang over there. It's a beautiful place in town. You know, I'm lucky to have a home studio that I can work at to do mixing and this and that, but when it really comes down to it and you want to have a space to track a band and the room to get a drum set sounding awesome and all the things, there's really no better place in town than Flowers for all the toys, all the space and the great sounding room and the microphones and the preamps and literally the guitar pedals and the guitars and the amps. I mean, a lot of studios have a really great setup where they have the recording equipment covered. Flowers has the recording equipment covered in spades, but then also provides
there is no room that's deeper on the gear level.
Right. I mean,
than Flowers.
you name it. There are several drum sets there. There are several snare drums. There are, I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 vintage guitars that are all incredible. There's there's no cheap wood on the pile. Like Ed's collection is about as deep and as lifelong as one could really come up with. It's staggering how much stuff he's packed in there, and it's all great stuff. Vintage keyboards, like I said, you know, all the combos and the big amps and the small amps and the bass amps, and it's really great. If you're a band in town and you need space to record live or to record great sounding drums, or just to get into a real studio and do the thing and get out of your bedroom, I really can't recommend it enough. And it's not just because the two of us are lucky enough to work in there. I was working in there when I could before I had a relationship with anyone over there. It's one of the nicest spots in town. It's worth a field trip.
It is, I think, the best drum room there is in town.
I think so too. There's a lot of cool rooms in town, but the
a lot of
character in
engineers
there,
that will say that.
yeah,
Like,
it's got the really high ceilings. It just, you know, there's some other great drum rooms in town that are cool because they're neutral. This one, you can get neutral type mics, but this room has character and has space. And if you set up a pair of room mics, I do it all the time. I solo up room mics from Flowers in here, and like you can hear it. That's Flowers drums.
That's Flowers drums.
That's that room. You know, it's just. I think that too often people shoot for these neutral rooms, and while that's kind of cool, like. Especially when it comes to drums, I want a room with character. I want to go to your room because I know what character I'm going to get out of it. You know, and not
that's
just,
the point of the room, is having something come out of it.
Right, right, and have room mics that sound a certain way, and just I mean, you know, I've recorded some cool sounding drums down in my tight little basement. These drums are one of those examples, but you cannot recreate that airspace and that room. I mean, there's a lot of great plugins out there, but nothing's going to give you a pair of room mics quite like a real pair of room mics in a really great sounding room. That's one of those things that they just kind of haven't quite figured out yet.
You can't really do it. And, you know, at some point, I think we're going to hear it on this track. One thing I realized I forgot to mention, the last thing, is also you kind of want to, like, trim the front and have a little bit of a fade in here.
Yeah.
And then trim the end here so we have, you know, left a little too much space on here.
Brett, Fuzzard went over to Flowers and did some drums over there.
Several times.
Best drum room,
in town.
modeled after Fort Apache in Boston. That's right. Ed went out of his way to get the blueprints and cop a lot of those moves because that was a room he was very excited about being able to.
Well,
be
he
similar
worked in
to.
there
Right,
a bunch.
Right. Just he was comfortable there. He liked it, and when he had an opportunity to build his own space, he was able to get those blueprints and take a lot of those moves for himself. You know.
We'll when we get to like talking about when we do the chop of Flowers and stuff, because we're, well, these guys are, and I'll be along for the ride, planning on doing a little Flowers thing. We'll get into a little bit of that history because it's pretty cool.
It's super cool, man.
And that'll be its own special thing. And I'm imagining that we're gonna do an episode. You're gonna do an episode on the song that we've already cut.
Yeah, totally. We have a song all tracked other than my vocals, which I need to finish up. And I've had a couple of opportunities where I wanted to do them and then just couldn't for different reasons. But along with that song, we have a whole lot of footage. Joe and Brad have been over there for almost all of the making of said song. So we'll be able to accompany the song itself with some footage. And then, we want to do a Flowers studio tour. At some point, I would like to go live from Flowers. We're just figuring out some of the logistical stuff of that. We'd like to maybe do an episode right from Flowers, but, that will all come in due time,
Yeah. Should we play the full mastered track now?
Yeah, let's play this track down as it's mastered by KJ. We'll give you the finished thing, and then we'll just take the last couple minutes. If anyone has any last questions, that includes you two guys.
Yeah, I got some stuff.
All right,
we'll ask KJ a few last questions, and then we'll wrap it up. But we'll take this down from the top. So this is, like I said, a song called "When the Medicine Runs Out," mastered by Mr. Kris Johnson.
Should I shake that there's no breeze? It's like this cold is coming from inside of me. Sometimes it takes letting me leave just empty space where my heart used to be. Did you shake me? Did you break me? Finally make me see what I got now. Things a lot now. Looks a lot like
All right. And there it is.
So yeah, so yeah, there it is. All mastered up. Kris went. Oh, I was looking at this clock and I was like, oh, we're still running, but it's because this thing is fucking way behind. Yeah, so if anyone has any last minute questions out in the chat, we're going to hang out for the last few minutes and tackle any questions. I know that both Brad and Joe said that they might have a couple of questions in the house here. So while we got Kris, let's take full advantage, fellas. What do you want to know?
Well, mine's more just like stuff that you covered. So stuff that was interesting to me. So like Brett's band Fuzzard, for example, like right now it's just singles, like going to be a series of singles that that get released digital and music video only.
I sent one to Greg Ryerson today or yesterday, right? So
basically it's like those are getting mastered, but there's eventually going to be a full album that, you know, not only goes on streaming, but there'll be CDs. We're talking about potentially vinyl. So, you know, Brett and I have had that conversation where, yeah, you're getting stuff mastered right now, but you're going to have to go back and have your album mastered as a whole.
Yeah.
You know,
I've talked to Patricia about that to take it even a step further. I'm like, I'm knocking these mixes out now, but when the whole record is done, I'm probably going to want to look at the whole picture of the record. And I may change some or all of the mixes at that point because things evolve too. Like, you know, we've been working on this record well over a year. Like, I buy new plugins and all of a sudden I'm like, well, shit, that first mix I did like was pre this plugin or whatever. Now, I kind of want to go back and kind of want to run it back because this thing is really, it just it changes your set of tools and you're like, oh man, I kind of want to use that thing now or whatever. So,
well, that brings up a really good point, Brad. Is that, you know, as we talked about levels and everything like that, part of like what is mastering? Well, we worked on one song, but when you master a record, you know, you might have the quiet song, the loud song, the weird techno-y song, you know, and you're trying to like get, Joe on the mic.
One mic or another. Pick one.
I'm going to pick this one for now. So I'm going to look at Brad and give him the attention he deserves. And so
I don't know about that.
You do want to make sure you do it all at once because you want to have the consistency. You want it. Part of what mastering also does is make a whole record feel like a record.
Coherent.
And consistent and sort of has a cohesion to it.
And you might need to put out some fires, right? Because one track might have a shitload of low end that the other ones don't have, and now you got to figure out how to get those to match up a little better and all that stuff, right?
So, in an example of that, when it's really disparate, is we had the Ed Ackerson tribute record, "Closer to Heaven," and so I mastered that whole thing. I engineered and produced and recorded 8 or 9 of the songs. And then I mastered the entire record.
And all those other ones were done in different rooms by different guys, right?
At different levels. Some were dudes in their garage, old friends of Ed's, and some were the Dandy Warhols with like super pro sounding things.
Some was dudes in their basement, but still featuring Soul Asylum. Because I mixed that here, you know, and sent it over to Kris.
And that was one of the good ones too.
That's what I'm talking about, party people.
But you know, that was another thing. Like, you don't want to dumb everything down to the lowest denominator, but you also don't want to make like one person's mix seem like really flaccid by comparison to everybody else, and like they got jobbed.
Yeah, you got to try to catch everyone up to the best thing on the plate as best you can, right?
And I wanted to make sure that everybody felt like they got, you know, and I couldn't necessarily push everything to its best limit because I had to accommodate an entire program.
Yeah, we've actually had to do that at Copycats, where like Fat Records will send us audio for a compilation.
Yeah.
And it's like songs from 20 different bands.
All different.
And it's like
different
totally
levels,
different. And they're just
different.
like, just even it all out the best you can.
And that's part of what mastering is for, is to sort of smooth all those edges off. And it's to add a little bit of, you know, help to all of it too. But like, so I had to kind of make a choice about how I was going to approach that as a 30-song record from, you know, a couple of them were dudes in a basement, weirdly, like, and there's always that weird thing too, like where you get the guy who does the garage band song in his house and like for some reason it is fucking loud by comparison
like how did he even do that? Right.
Why does this sound so fucking loud?
Because he doesn't know the rules.
Yeah.
But in like a good way.
And sometimes it works to your advantage, right?
It's
totally.
strange how that works out.
Right.
But like then you got to make sure that one doesn't feel strangely outside the rest of them. But you know, there was a lot of really great well done songs by everybody, so it was fun to master. Like I got a really good mixes from like the Tanya Donnelly track was really awesome sounding. What the heck is the name of that studio? It's Q something Studios. Great room. Got the Dandy Warhol's track was like super well done. Pete International Airport, which is the guitarist of Dandy Warhol's side project, was like another really well done outside the box kind of sound. None of them were bad, but there was different levels of pro on it, and that's just what it was, because it was just everybody contributing in honor of Ed and his music. And so as the master, I had to figure out how to make these things sound. If you play them all through at once, would it any of them go like, you know, you don't want any of that, or like, ooh, that one doesn't sound very
Right,
good.
no head turners.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's a question in the chat here from Dave Johnstrom. He says, when's the new Two Harbors record getting done?
Well, we talked about this at the front of your show. We all got vaxxed, and so we
Right, the time is near.
we
Yeah,
we all got vaxxed. We thinking of changing our name to the Pfizer 4.
Ooh.
No, I'm kidding. But we all got vaxxed, so we're finally going to start rehearsing. Tomorrow's our first rehearsal.
Nice,
Since
man.
before we started rehearsing for a little bit masked up. Like we're doing like 40-minute rehearsals. Like we get in, we played our songs and got out.
Right.
Not a lot of hanging. Was fun to play with those guys, but wasn't, you know, like
Not the same hang.
it's not the same hang.
Right.
Two Harbors is all about the hang, really.
Right.
And
You're
then
back on tomorrow.
The second spike happened, and so we shut it down.
Right, but tomorrow you're
Tomorrow we're back
Dave.
on. Good question, Dave.
I
And
think
so
good for you, man. Soul Asylum starts on Thursday. Back to rehearsal. I couldn't. I mean, I
It
kind of
feels like your
always
life is
look
coming
for
back.
rehearsal. Like I look forward to rehearsals. So, like I do more than a lot of guys in bands do. But
Yeah,
like,
me too.
Holy shit, am I looking forward to?
I can't
rehearsal.
wait.
man. Yeah,
I can't wait to see those guys without masks on and like be able to not have that weird feeling hanging over us. And so we're gonna be able to like in answer to the question, we're gonna be able to get rehearsals going, which will then get us into the studio.
Right.
We're hoping in about a month or so, and then it'll just, you know, the Two Harbors works at a glacial pace. So it takes as long as it takes, and so I don't know how long it'll take. I'm hoping Pav and I are hoping to make that trip, you know, and we're also, frankly, we're waiting for the borders to open up. We want to go back to London.
right.
Like it's I mean, making records for us is all about just our own personal gratification, and so
Right.
we want to go back to Abbey Road. And
Right.
so
and
like,
shout out to Pav for being like, you know what? Let's master this thing at Abbey Road. I'm going
Yep.
to make that happen,
and he did.
and he did.
And
right.
we got to do that, and so
That's
now
insane.
Yeah.
once you're Brett, the bass player is plucked. He's in my band. Everybody's plucked. That's how we
Yeah,
roll.
Jeremy
You can't even
Burgo.
come in the room.
You
if
don't
you're
even
not
you ain't even
plucked,
around
bro.
the room with
Right.
a non-plucked guitar.
You got to
My
bring
rule,
your
friend.
vaccination card and your plucked
your
card.
plucked card.
So, Brett, in case you haven't put two and two together, the Two Harbors bass player is Jeremy Burgo, who is the old Attention bass player. So, yes, he is very well plecked. He got the whole deal, right? The refret, the
Oh yeah,
pleck,
we
the
did
whole,
the planing,
Yeah. Yeah.
the fingerboard plane, the whole.
He's got a
9
vintage
yards.
P bass,
I'm
and
just-
it's all done up
I'm
right.
throwing this out, man, but what we should do is like do a little like Twin Town. Like we should get over there with the camera and be like, this is what a plec is. This is what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah,
That would
all,
be
sick.
all 5 people that are interested in that.
Bro,
would be-
I
I'd
mean, 4
be
of us are right
surprised.
here.
Yes,
Brett's
that's
on
4 of
the.
us.
I was just
You'd be
talking to.
surprised.
it's mildly interesting if you move it quickly.
Yeah, sure,
for
and
sure.
we can chop it up. I mean, it doesn't
A
necessarily
little
be
less-
the thing, but I
little
was
less
just talking
endeavor.
to my buddy Nick at New Vintage. Shout out. And we were talking about guitar subs, and I was like, "Yo, man, I'm about to get my Telecaster plecked." He's like, "Oh, who's doing that down there?" And it's like, we gotta let people know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, a pleck machine is no small investment. It's a
Yeah.
big deal. I'm surprised Brett hasn't put one down in his basement yet for the guitars.
I know.
He could have bought one by now.
Peloton's
Not
in the
really.
way.
Yeah,
but
He says a great mix starts with plecked guitars. You're not wrong.
you're not
Yeah.
wrong,
Yo.
friend.
You know, it helps to have things really in tune right from the jump, and that's what that pleck does more than anything. You know, it makes your guitar easier to play, but it makes it play more in tune than it ever did before, and that's huge in the studio. You spend most of your time when you're recording guitars. You'd think like all the time is spent on getting tones. It's really like you get the tone pretty quick, and then you like work on keeping the fucking thing in tune like the whole rest of the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
David says, tell a Japan story. Well, are there any other quick questions?
Yeah, did you
Or
have some
should
questions
we-
for Cage?
Should we shut it down?
You kind of answered mine along the way, but I did have one question. Like, have you ever encountered a situation doing mastering specifically where it's like, no, you guys need to work on this mix before I can get back at it? You need to fix. Here's a list of things, or it's like the whole thing.
I try
or
not to bum people's high.
Sure.
And so
We appreciate that
What
around
I will do in that situation is there has been a couple times where I'd say like, hey, I can do this for you, but if you want, I could give you a few ideas of things you could do if you want
right.
to take the
Right.
time.
That would improve
and
this.
that would
Let
help
me
you out.
help you help me.
Help me.
Right.
And
right.
so
right.
that's usually well received, but I would never say no, that I'm not going to do it.
Great, I got some demos coming
Sweet.
your way.
Sounds good.
Right. You got that rate together?
I got that right.
Talk to my money guy.
But
right
I always try to just like I'm you know, it's a thing I've always done. I've learned from Ed, like the thing that I hate the most is the mastering guy. I was going to talk about this. We didn't get there.
The
but like,
over-opinionated mastering guy?
Oh man, it's too bad. Like there's just no headroom in this thing.
I've dealt with a couple of
you
those
know,
cats.
blah blah blah, and they piss, bitch, and moan. And those are all the guys that are not. You know, want to talk about pro? I've had stuff mastered by top level guys. All of those guys. All right, this sounds great. We're
Right.
gonna have fun with this. We're
Right.
gonna make this awesome.
Right. Any notes or anything? Nah, man, great. Here it
And
is.
The other guy.
Right.
And here's the invoice.
Yeah, here's the invoice.
And please send
and that's
another
in
one.
pounds.
It's fucking A. Right.
But the guys that have been
transfers.
problems are always the guys that will complain and
Yeah.
will gripe at you about what
Yeah.
you're doing. And
I've dealt with it.
Will tell you, and those are the guys that frankly usually they fucking suck.
Yeah, get bent.
And so it's just
Nobody
kinda
wants
like,
to work with those dudes.
Nobody wins. No one wins.
Do your gig.
So I'm always trying to get the win. So if that
It's an important
person-
thing in like creative work in general.
and
right?
everything. Don't. My girlfriend says this a lot. Don't yuck my yum.
Yo.
And it's like, yeah, because like I'm as Jeremy will tell you, I'm a little bit of an opinionated guy.
No, okay.
And she'll
I have mentioned that.
she'll crack open something, and I'll be like, oh God, and she's like, don't yuck my yum.
Don't harsh my mellow,
You
dude.
might not like it, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I've learned to do
Right.
that, and I try not to do that, and I've always tried to do that in music though, like. Don't bum people
Right.
out. I'm sure I have it. Somebody's gonna chime in like,
Oh,
remember
of
that
course.
time?
Well, funny you should say that.
Say that, dickhead.
I can see a few people typing right now.
But you know, I try not to bum people's high if I feel like, man, you know, this isn't going to be that great, but maybe if I can give them a few ideas of what they could maybe go back and do.
You'll
And
feel that
sometimes,
out.
but sometimes, like conversely, what we've talked about this whole time, like somebody will give me something like, "Hey, this mix sucks.
Can you save it?
Can you save it?
Right.
What can you do? Do whatever you need to do."
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll really get in there and I'll use that EQ and I can pull things up and push things away, and you know, it's all on a broader scale than off of a 2-track than
You
a
bring
full
out the
mix.
big
like,
hammer
Right,
for
right.
that
The
one.
big hammer.
It was pretty impressive though to see like how surgical you could get with like some of the mid-side
You
stuff.
can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. After
Everything's like a
already hitting all the
DB. It's a
yeah,
DB here
right.
and there, and when it's all told, it's like you flip back and forth. And like Joe said, he was putting the headphones on so he could really hear it, and he's like, "Wow, man, it's a fucking big difference."
It really is, and it's not that the mix was bad from the start, but it's
No.
like
Even though Joe
man.
said it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
though
I say
Joel's
it
capping
every
on it.
time,
Right.
every time.
Right, but then again,
I'm
Joe
capping.
hasn't submitted a thing to be showcased yet. So.
Chris and I are working on a bit now.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. We got a little thing happening.
No,
Tell a Japan
Tell a
story.
Japan story.
Just, I mean, I can think of a
For the
couple.
people.
I can think of a couple quick. I will say that poor Dave spent his entire Japanese tour with a big shiner.
Big shiner. First night.
First night of the tour, he broke a drumstick, and the piece that broke flew up and caught him like somehow in the corner of the eye, just right. And he had a fat boy shiner for the whole rest of the. Just a big one, you know, just a black eye. I remember that. Obviously there's plenty of Burgle San Yusa.
Yeah. Plenty
I
of
also remember one of the funnier dinners. Well, first of all, KJ spent his whole trip trying to find some chicken anywhere.
that. Just anything.
He was not
that'd be me.
looking.
I would have been with you, man.
He was not looking for any sushi, really.
I hadn't been exposed yet, but now I eat it
waiting
like
for fuck's
fucking
sake.
crazy.
Right, and but before you do, you just don't, right? But one night, and we were going out to pretty nice dinners every night, and one night, like a you know, a high honor was they brought this one cut of fish out, and it was like, here's the head of the fish, and then as the body comes down, they've like made the slices, and they're like, oh wow, this is high honor, and like, you know, we're like checking it out, and like as we're checking it out, the fish like turned his head like he was still alive.
Yeah,
and
that was
like,
really...
that was the freshest sushi you could get. Like he's all sawed up from the 2/4 line back or whatever.
Yeah,
but like,
that was a little gnar.
he looked over and we all just lost our shit, and like all of a sudden their cameras out and just like, are you fucking
God, I
kidding?
forgot about that.
Yeah, this dude looked over like, you really gonna eat me, man? And you know, Burgo was like, yep. Yeah.
Burgo-san was, you know, sushi.
Yeah, right.
But another great one from that same night was, so they take you out for the big dinner at the front and the big dinner at the end.
Kampai.
Kampai
Yep.
and Otsukai-san, or whatever they call it, however they say the...
Osukai-sama.
Osukai-sama.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first
I
night,
remember.
they took us out, and he wasn't into sushi, I wasn't, but I was trying it. I was trying to get into it, and the rest of these guys are all just like, ah, and like
Loving
him
it.
and I have had like 2 bites of food all night.
Now I'm total sushi guy.
I'm just,
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to that
Japan
night.
helped me get there. Now it's
It
like,
did.
now I love it. Yep.
But they brought out a plate that was of this deep fried stuff, and we thought it was chicken. So we start digging in, and we're like, and it's battered, and it's kind of good, and it's a little crunchy. And I'm kind of wondering what it is. And then we go, was it Yajime? Yajime-san, what is this? And they did that thing where they talk back and forth in Japanese for a minute, and then they're going like this, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, it's chicken knuckle.
It's a knuckle.
Oh yeah.
And we're
Yeah,
like,
straight
oh,
toes.
it's cartilage.
Yeah.
Deep fried chicken
cartilage.
toes.
That
Yep.
sounds. I'm into that.
It's okay.
A little ketchup, maybe.
It's okay.
Another quick Japanese story that you just totally made me think of was they would often do that. We'd be driving in the van, and 4 of us in the back, gear behind us, our 3 Japanese kind of tour guides / road crew / label guy, all the guys, whatever, they're sitting up front. And I forget who asked the question, but at one point we're rolling to the next show. And it's like, hey, do we have any time to do a little sightseeing? Could we stop and like kind of look around and maybe get something to eat or whatever? And then they go into this Japanese conversation
That you were not a part of.
that you are just not a part of. And these dudes talk for like 6 or 7 minutes. And we're just sitting back there, they're doing their whole thing. And then finally, Ryu, who's like the head guy, turns around and goes, sorry, no time. After like literally 10 minutes of them back and forth, and we're like, ooh, maybe they're making a plan for us or whatever. We're just waiting. Sorry, no time.
No time.
It's just like, what the fuck else were you guys
think
talking
they were just
about?
always
for those
trying
moments?
to figure out how they could accommodate us, because that's all they really wanted to do.
Totally.
Is they went out of their way to make our time, and they had fun with us, but they do that all the time.
Yeah, they're always
They're always
responsible
gotta
for
do
taking
that,
some band
and
around and they're just like,
babysitting. That's work.
oh, you guys want to go to Kyoto and buy some little fucking cheap trinkets and walk
Cool.
around the
All
temple? I
right.
haven't
Yep.
been there 6 times this month or
Yeah,
whatever.
but they made sure that we had fun. But the funny thing was anytime there was anything, they would have their own conference, and you just have no idea
Yeah.
what they were talking about.
Yeah, you would ask a question and they would just launch into a big conversation, and then however much longer later, they would hit you with an answer.
They would never just off the cuff be like, sorry, no time.
Yeah, no, there was none of that.
We can't do that.
No.
They would try to figure out if there was time.
Dave's pushing for the tell him the Burgo-san you suck.
Burgo-san.
story. I don't know. Can we tell that story?
Sure we can.
Well, you tell it.
You are on now.
Is it just because he was taking a piss on the
zoom in?
sidewalk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gage.
So
Tell me
we were out, like, remember, we're young dudes. We're in Japan, and we were drinking a lot.
Oh yeah,
we didn't
man.
drink that much, but
yeah, but we were having some Sapporos.
we were out.
We were having some tall Sapporos. We were checking out that warm sake, and that sake will sake it to you, boy,
that shit
real
will
quick.
Fuck you up fast.
Right.
And so, like, we're out kind of pounding it, and we're walking around, and like,
Typical American.
Typical American.
Burgo's got to take a
Burgo's
whiz.
got to take a leak.
And Burgo might be a little bit hammered, and his volume level
A lot
goes up a
hammered.
little bit when he gets a little hammered. So like,
He's a lot of fun. But
it's literally you can search it on YouTube. It's still there. I made a video for this
Yep.
demo called "Stay," and it starts with Burgo. You know, he's turned, but he's literally just peeing
He's
on the
peeing on
side
the
of the
wall.
street, and he's like, "I will not let myself be made a fool of myself in Japan." And literally right after that, it cuts, and one of the label guys just looked and shook his head and was like, "Burgo-san, you a sucker."
And because you got to remember, like, we're out doing this and we're thinking it's funny, but like that's you get caught
Super
doing that, you're
offensive.
fucked.
Yeah, hand to cut off.
And they are really, really
Right.
nervous at this point because they're like, holy shit, he's fucking pissing on the wall.
Right, like if the
a
cops
cop
come,
walks
like,
around the corner,
it's-
he's going to
It's
get
a real
arrested.
problem.
It's huge. It's
It's
going to
a
be
huge
a real
problem.
problem. That's disrespectful.
So they're like, ha ha ha, funny. Can we not do this, please?
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, hang on, let me get my video camera out. Like, we're like,
And we're
making a
laughing
scene
and
out
getting
of it.
louder because
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
Why not draw us?
Because we're young and
You suck.
yeah. But Rio was, they were good sports about it. Rio was
Oh, yeah,
hilarious.
but yeah, so for
That's-
those who
that's
want to
the
know,
you.
it's in there. Yeah, you guys
Yep.
can check it out. That's what year was that?
2004, 3 or 4, something like that.
Yeah, long time
Yeah,
ago.
long time.
But, yeah, Dave's got a big old shiner right in the
In the promo.
Thumbnail.
promo clip.
In the promo thumbnail. Yeah, he got whacked because I remember looking back and he was like laying on his head down and just like, I'm
He
like,
says,
I don't like Burgo.
I don't
He'd
like a Burgo, son.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a bad night in the red light district or something, and Dave came away with the shiner.
No,
Not that exciting.
no, yeah, that would be cool.
Opening night though, and like right at the end, like I think
Just drumstick.
last
It
song.
literally flew up and like just like went in the corner of his eye, and it was like, you know, he was like playing and like trying to get it out. I don't even know. It was like one of those like lightning strike situations.
Sure.
Those Japanese
That
dudes
was-
all had some of the best quotes. I remember once I came down to the lobby because they would always set up morning assembly.
Assembly time.
9 o'clock or whatever. And I came down and I had a Coke in my hand. And I like, you know, because I often do have a Coke in my hand. Rio again is like, JT-san, every day, every time, every day, Coca-Cola.
I'm gonna start saying that
Yeah.
shit.
Every day,
'Cause
every
you
time.
for real, dude.
You know what I loved the most was the vending machines that had the aluminum bottle. It was like the bottle
yeah.
with the little tapered top.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like 16 ounces. It was the fucking best Coke ever.
You get a hot coffee out of a vending.
hot-
All the
hot
vending
coffee was
machines.
okay.
Those guys were pumped. I remember Dave and Berger were pumped on the hot
Did you guys
coffees.
ever see the video of Billy Joe Armstrong with the piece of the guitar string in his eye? That I was thinking of
Oh,
Dave and his
no.
black eye. It's on YouTube somewhere. It's from, but like he has like they had to like get it removed.
I bet.
I
It
bet.
was like a piece, a little chunk of the
Oh,
guitar string.
ooh, that sounds
Terrible.
awful.
That sounds painful.
Anyway,
Yeah, Yakuza did got brought up because at one point we were like, how hard is it to find weed in Japan? And they were just like, whoa. They were like, you
Yeah.
can only get that from the Yakuza, and we are not helping you find it. Just straight
They're
up.
like, how they put it, marijuana highly criminalized.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they were like, I know there was another band that had been there before, and the singer like basically was like, you are going to provide me
I
with
need
some weed.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
That is going to happen because
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in Japan for 14 days without smoking any weed at all because it's going to make me go nuts. So I think the story was they got him some and they like brought him into the office and they turned all the lights
It
off.
was like a whole thing.
It was
It's
a whole
like-
thing
it's-
because they were like terrified. 'cause
It's
you get
like
caught,
asking like
you're in
someone
trouble.
we know for like, dude, where can I get some heroin for real?
Yeah.
Like someone might be able to find it, but they're like, oh fuck,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing
Yeah,
this,
dude.
This is where we're going.
right? Like
Yeah.
we don't just need like a little weed or whatever.
So they were really like, yeah, no.
They were just straight up no.
that's
Me and
why I
Dave
don't
were
go to
just like,
Japan.
The
That's
first
all
question
that's
they
stupid
asked
me.
us actually is if we had any with us.
oh yeah, because if you're bringing it in, that's like,
And then-
I think they were literally like hand cut off.
Yeah, they were So we get in the van and like, you know, we're all like excited. We don't know what to say, and we all hop in the van and we don't know what to say to them, and they don't know what to say to us. And then they go, "Have you guys ever been to Japan before?" And we're like, "No." And they, Japan, very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were like
And
putting the fear of
They
us.
kind of they
putting
were
the fear on
getting us to
dude.
laugh, but it was kind of like. And then they were like, "You guys did not bring any weed with you. Did you have any drugs?" I think they just asked for drugs.
We're like,
in general.
unfortunately, no, man. We're hoping you guys would have some.
Yeah. Ask Tommy, you know, ask Nikki Six how that can work out for you.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, so they were pretty concerned about that right from the jump.
Luckily, we were schoolboys. You know, we didn't
I
have
know.
we didn't have anything
Just
bad.
pissed
to
on a
do.
wall or two.
Just pissed on a wall or two.
But here we are, 20 minutes past
All right.
the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to do a little chopping up. Thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. Dave, thanks for popping in. I don't think that Dave's quoting a Japanese guy here. I think he just doesn't like burger.
Oh, that's
I
unfair.
think that's what he's
oh,
saying.
Man.
Yeah, he told me that earlier.
All caps. I get it.
No, I think that's in the video. I don't like
Yeah,
Virgo.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, classic. That was when the video camera was like this fucking big.
Yeah.
I hauled that thing to Japan and did a little cut up on the old iMovie or whatever. So check that out if you want. That's me and KJ and David and Jeremy Burgo running around Japan on like the best tour the band ever had. We were in Japan headlining shows, a fucking unbelievable, unheard of. We were putting a couple hundred kids in the room every night. The kids were into it. They had our albums. They tried their best to sing our lyrics. I don't know. It still blows me away that we were able to do that and that people knew who we were.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, Michael Bland, thanks a lot. Learned a lot. Oh, good to have you, man. Glad to.
Hey, Michael.
Speaking of pros.
Yeah.
Speaking of
pros,
pros.
I have started slowly buttering up Mr. Michael Bland to get him on the show at some point. Andy Gruen in the house.
Andy Gruen.
Everyone's chiming in last minute here.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see everyone. Yeah, like I said, we're 20 minutes past the hour. We did some great mastering tonight. If you want to learn about that, if you're just tuning in now, feel free to go back. This thing will be on YouTube. But yeah, fun to have a special guest in the studio tonight with us, Mr. Kris Johnson. Thanks again, man.
Does Kris know how to close this out?
I don't know. Do you know? You don't? Do you know what we say at the end of each episode?
Keep it tight.
Oh.
Kick it! Wake up in the morning, time to check that mix. It was rocking last night, today it sounds like shit. So you put